Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your archbishop of Banterbury, your chancellor of cheerfulness, your pharaoh of physical media, and of course, as we all know, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett, coming at you, robcasting at you, you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity. And when I say members now, you can become a real member. Jeff Yerke became a real member. I think there's a couple other people that became real members as well. Now, a lot of people, I've been getting a little pushback on this whole membership thing. Look, on YouTube, when you have 30,000 subscribers, it opens up the ability to have memberships. Like, this is something new. Now, you don't have to become a member. You don't have to support the channel. This is just an extra added bonus thing. And since it opened up, we're like, oh, okay, it's a thing. Now, you can become a member of this channel for 99 cents a month. And we just wanted to make it fun. Like, I didn't want it to be some kind of a status thing or whatever. There are things that I want to do with the channel that prevent me from, say, doing what John Campea does, because he makes a lot more money from his channel than this channel does. So, I want to get more equipment, for instance, and I want to be able to wire this whole Robservatory so I can literally, during a show, walk around. Like, I could literally, I could sit on the Robservatory couch, and I could literally, that's my dream, as Burt Lancaster said in Field of Dreams. That's my dream, Ray Kinsella. That's my dream. And memberships and all that would help, because wouldn't it be cool? Like, if I had this place wired with cameras and mics, so I could literally just walk around here. It would be cool, right? I wouldn't have to just be sitting here. I mean, that's kind of what I would like to do. So, memberships and all that would help. It would go toward doing those kinds of things. But it's kind of cool. I mean, it's funny that I see people with their emojis and stuff pop up. And I love it. It's kind of fun for me. It was kind of a neat thing. So I want to thank everybody that's become a member. And like I said, at those levels, what I'd like to do is, we're going to do additional things, like a la HBO when Bill Maher does his show, and after his show's over, he has those additional 15-minute shows. Well, I want to do that. I want to be able to have chats afterwards, for members who, whether it's Zoom or whether it's another version of this, but where we can converse more directly rather than reading letters or super chats or tips or whatever, do live just back and forth and things like that, which would be very, very cool. And so I also am looking toward, well, you'll find out, the film festival is kind of a trial run of creating more and more programming for the site that I don't create, that other people would create, and hopefully literally take the Burnettwork and turn it into a network. I mean, if I had my druthers, I would actually have, 12 hours of programming on this channel. I mean, I think that would be pretty cool. But it wouldn't all be me. It would just be whatever people could make, and it's really interesting. We dropped another film today for the first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival. That was sort of an interesting take from Australia, where they talk about the creation of Spider-Man as a character. And I love the fact that our filmmakers, there's three Australian guys. One's playing Stan Lee, one's playing Steve Ditko, and one is playing Jack Kirby, and they all speak with Australian accents, but they're in New York City. It's just, there's something about it. I love that. I thought it was great. Again, this film festival, it is an Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival, and I've been blown away. I received a trailer for an animated movie, and the filmmaker, I don't know if he's going to get the whole film done by the end of the festival, but he did send me his trailer, which will be dropping tomorrow. It's very short, but it will be dropping tomorrow at noon. That shows a little bit of his work. I mean, animation? This is exactly what I wanted. This film festival, if nothing else, it's just delighting me. And we're going to be announcing more judges. There are cash prizes, even prizes that are being sponsored that we haven't dropped. We're going to be rolling those out as we move along through the festival. It's just, I love it. And also, as everybody knows, the poster contest is ongoing. You can vote until October 15th. You can vote once a day. And if you go to the website, there's a film festival tab in the top left of the website at the Burnettwork.net. You can go down there and you can vote for the posters. And when you vote, your vote is locked in. But every day the posters get scrambled, so they're not. Whenever you go back, the order of the posters is always different. So people can't go, well, Rob, this poster was at the top left, so it got the most votes. That is not true. And it's really interesting to see how the voting is shaping up. So all of this stuff, I don't think anyone is as delighted as the creativity that you imagination connoisseurs are showing as I am. Between the poster collection and seeing these movies start to come in, I am one happy camper. So I want to thank all of you. And it's the kind of thing where, what I wanted to do with this channel is exactly this, which is foster and inspire all of the creativity of the rest of you. And if I can be a cheerleader and a repository of this and promote it all, that's what I want to do. And I think that's where I want this channel to be going. And obviously, as we said in the membership video that I made, can't do it without you. I mean, you guys have made this channel what it is. You guys have created a community here. I mean, I'm just a figurehead. I'm just a guy throwing a party. But a party's only as good as the people that come. I mean, no, I'm not saying that the host isn't important. But you imagination connoisseurs, you members of the Post-Geek Singularity, you people, you gentle beings, you kind souls, however you identify across these 28 known galaxies, you people out there, you members of the human race, no matter who you are in all of your various forms and guises, I'm loving y'all. So thanks for making this event. And it's just starting. I mean, this is just the first week of getting films. I mean, it's amazing. So you know what else is amazing? I'll tell you what else is amazing. So as many of you know, I've talked about Cal, Swack Props. Swack Props, that's what he goes by in the chats. And he's a member. Swack Props is a member of the channel. Well, so unbeknownst to me, so Swack Props makes prop replicas of things that are made of paper in movies, like books. And one of the things that when he first started coming on, I think I did a Google search to find his Etsy store. I'm like, what is Swack Props? Like, what does he make? And he made a book of the 9 kingdoms, the 9 gates of the kingdom of heaven, from the movie, from Roman Polanski's film, The Ninth Gate, starring Johnny Depp. I love The Ninth Gate. Do I think it's the best movie in the world? No. But the fact that it's about rare books and Satan, I mean, rare books and Satan, you had me at hello. But the fact that there's also different versions of this book. So Swack Props, so Cal made these different versions of this book which, first of all, the thing that I loved most about it was there was somebody else in the world who clearly watched The Ninth Gate and liked it as much as I did, liked it to the point where they made prop replicas of the books from the movie. And there's different versions. And then he makes a version that is not really canonical to the movie, but is awesome because it's like the devil's version that has all the 3 books combined. Well, I started talking about it, and Cal just sent me one. It was amazing. And then he sent me all the different pages. And so he makes these amazing prop replicas and stuff. But I just thought, I've seen his books. He also sent me Rorschach's journal from Watchmen, which is awesome. But he makes an amazing Henry Jones's Grail diary from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So I get a package. From Swack Props the other day. It comes from Malaysia. Now, I didn't order anything. He didn't tell me he was sending me anything, I don't think. So I opened this package, and at first I'm like, I don't know what this is. But then I open it up. Now, I need to put my glasses on for this. These terrible, horrible Amazon glasses. One day I'm going to get the Tom Ford glasses that I deserve. So anyway, so I get this package in the mail from, and it's full of all kinds of things. And at first, I open it up, and it's, let's see, do I have the letter? So I open it up. I'm going to read the letter that came. Hi, Rob. Congratulations on your 500th show, on the channel passing 3 million views and reaching 30,000 subscribers. I thought I'd put together a gift pack of some of my favorite replicas I've made over the years. These are not stuff I offer for sale on my Etsy store, more like side projects from movies that I love. Each of the envelopes contain items from different films with an accompanying note giving some background of the contents. The white envelope contains the map to Erebor, where Smaug is. The one I usually offer on my Etsy store is the version from The Hobbit, but since you worked on The Lord of the Rings, I've included the version that is seen when Gandalf paid a visit to Old Bilbo in Bag End at the beginning of Fellowship. And yes, the map does have the moon runes. I included a UV pen with a light in the cap so you can see them. Oh, wait. Best regards, Cal, a.k.a. Swag Props. And I'm like, come on. Now, come on. I realized I left the pen. I can't show you, but but it does work. So look at this. The map to Erebor, as it appears in Fellowship of the Ring. I mean, I don't know if you can see the weathering, the way it's folded, and the parchment-like paper, and all this. I mean, this is insane. If you were working on a film, you know, you would be hard pressed to get something that is as good as this. I mean, this is amazing, and this is just something. Oh, Cal doesn't even sell it; he just makes it. I mean, this is amazing. Okay, so that was just one of the many treasures that was in this bag. So in the movie The Ninth Gate, Boris Balkan, played by Frank Langella, hires Johnny Depp to go look for a copy of The Nine Gates in Europe. Which is cool, right? So Cal sends me copies of the checks that Boris Balkan gave to Johnny Depp's character, Dean Corso. I mean, look at this. Signed by Boris Balkan himself. 1, these are all different. 2, and 3. Now, these are obviously fake checks from a movie that came out 21 years ago. But the fact that Cal made these, this is what I mean by imagination connoisseurs. This is kind of why, in a way, between Dieter Bastian and Patrick Keller making their movie The Secret Exchange, and Swag Props sending me these books, this is why we have this paper products. This is why we have a film festival now. I mean, it's the creativity of you guys. Now, I won't show you everything that he sent me, but because I gotta continue. There's a couple of things here that I have to show you. So this is the best. So these things that he sent me are in manila envelopes. This one comes from Dr. Emmett Brown. Let me read you what it says. Dear Robert, Marty and I have taken the DeLorean to sort out some problems and to fix the timeline. So I would appreciate it if you could take care of this in our absence. Please do not use it, and under no circumstances should you allow old Biff Tannen anywhere near it. So you might guess what that is. It's the Sports Almanac from Back to the Future 2. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you, how cool this is. With all that and look what else was in here. Not to be outdone, Save the Clock Tower. I mean, I can't even. I can't even. I can't even. It's like the coolest. It doesn't get much cooler than this, man. And I feel like I need a special glass display case just to put the stuff that Cal is making from Swag Props. Now, this is the last one I'll do. But so, dear Robert, enclosed is the Diagrams Veritatis from the Vatican Archives. Please handle it with care. I need you to take a close look at it, and if you can find any clues, that would really help shed some light on the Illuminati threat. on the current papal conclave. I'm about to. I'm also something. Oh, I'm also enclosing a copy. It goes on and on. But anyway, so this is from Robert Langdon. Tom Hanks is Robert Langdon from the adaptations of Dan Brown's Robert Langdon books. So first of all, there's this stuff, which is like Xeroxes that were made in the church. And then, of course, there's the actual book. I mean, look, I don't even know. Like, I look at this, and again, the paper, the pages. I mean, it looks absolutely authentic. Amazing. It's just amazing. Yeah, and I feel like I should just tell people that these are real. Amazing work. But I wanted to give a big shout out to Cal because not only is this a cool thing to have, not only is this cool to own, it's just the creativity that a human being, first of all, the idea that you think this stuff up, that there's somebody in the world that's like, I know what I'm going to do in my spare time. I'm going to make fictional books from movies. That idea is the best. And that it feeds into this whole conversation that I'm going to have, that I've been thinking about. But yeah, so shouts out to Cal. I would implore all of you to, and by the way, he doesn't pay me for this. I don't consider what he's sending me a bribe. I didn't even know I was going to get this stuff. And he didn't know that I was going to mention it on the show. So I will say this, go to Swag Props, S_WAK, Props, Props, look for his Etsy store and go check it out. And look, his stuff isn't cheap, but I'll tell you something. If you want to give somebody a unique gift, that would love it. I mean, you'd have to be a specific kind of a person to love it. But if you do, if you're that guy or that girl, or that if you're non-binary, however you identify yourselves, if you love these kinds of things, I'm telling you, getting one of Swag Props' props, it's pretty awesome. Now that that's all out of the way, so we all know that Star Trek Lower Decks had its season finale, episode 10, yesterday. Now, I haven't talked about this show. And once it debuted, I really didn't get into it. And part of the reason why is I didn't want to be negative about it. And I've been watching it. But when I watched the finale, I had a really visceral, I was angry when it was over. And all these people are like, it's so great. Even people that hate, like, I hate Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard. I hate them. I think they're bad television, bad science fiction, and particularly bad Star Trek. And it all comes down to the writing and the lack of acknowledgement of anything that came before. And I was having a conversation with Mike Bodden. Mike Bodden said something to me that I completely agree with, and it sort of solidified my feelings of new Star Trek. And that is, he was saying it's from sleeves to coattails is what, or sleeves to shirt tails is what he said. And what he meant, I was like, I'd never heard that before. Like, what does he mean by that? Well, and Mike explained, when you're starting a business, when you're creating something, whatever it is, a business, a television show, movies or whatever, you roll up your sleeves and you get into it. You get dirty, you do all the work. And then what happens is, like, say it's a family business and you've created this thing that becomes wonderful, a phenomenon, it becomes wildly successful, it transcends time. And what I'm speaking about is Star Trek. And then what happens is the next generation after that, probably the kids or something, they still aspire to live up to the ideals of what the parents or what was originally created. And then what happens is a generation after that comes along, and they're your shirt tails. They're the people that are doing it for other reasons. There's the idea of legacy isn't really part of their thinking. They just want to be a part of it and make some money and get rich or whatever, and they tend to run it into the ground. So there is that paradigm. There's the original generation that created it. There's the next generation that is trying to live up to the ideals of the original. And then there's the third generation that's 3 times or twice removed that isn't that particularly interested in the original legacy of the material, but they're trying to make it their own, and they end up usually running it into the ground because it's like, let's just make profit or whatever. So that the thought of from shirt sleeves to shirt tails was something that I had never heard before. And Mike was telling me about that. I'm like, wow, like that's awesome. And I was thinking that pretty much describes Star Trek for me. You know, Star Trek has gone from shirt sleeves to shirt tails. And I've been feeling that. Now, there's a lot of people that friends of mine on Facebook, and some people I have love-hate relationships with, but there, you know, there's also people that I respect. And there's a friend of mine on Facebook, and he is not a lover of Discovery or Picard either. His name is Larry Young. A lot of people in the comic book field know him. He once published Steve Crozier, my friend Steve Crozier, and of course Mark Altman, my compatriot Mark Altman. Larry Young once published a book about Elvis that they had done, a comic book about Elvis that they had done, I don't know, about 10 years ago or something, even longer. So Larry has been reviewing, he has a blog that he calls Spunky Bean, spunkybean.com, where he writes about Star Trek and pop culture. But it was interesting because he waxed rhapsodic about the finale of Star Trek Lower Decks, and I want to share with you what he wrote. So here's what he wrote. Larry versus Star Trek, Lower Decks, 1 through 10, but episode 10, no small parts. I'm not even sure how to talk about the season finale of Lower Decks getting everything so spectacularly right without mentioning how wrong all the other modern Treks are. So far, so good for me. Relentless references to beloved past episodes, 3 major plot turns that were absolutely earned, characters reinforced, relationships upgraded, all in 22 minutes or whatever. I can't be bothered to go look up the runtime because I'm on such an adrenaline high of my enjoyment of the show. It's so tightly written, so lovingly produced, I literally cannot believe Alex Kurtzman's name is on this thing. I mean, where to start? This entire episode was like hooking a battery up to the frog's leg part of my soul, where my love of Star Trek lives. Landru callback spectacularly on fleek. The animated series Kirk and Spock on the pad. Ransom actually defining TOS's those old scientists. Captain Freeman threatening to paradox logic Landru again like it's a thing taught in First Contact with computers running society's class of the Academy. Pack-led threats and 100% character service with Boimler and Mariner dealing with last week's Preminger Mom bombshell all in the first 5 minutes. This is a masterclass writing, people. This is everything Roddenberry and Fontana and Berman and Taylor and Bear did with crazy references and in-jokes and backwards and in high heels. Mike McMahon, you legend. I mean, it's like he watched the end of Picard and said, series finale, Riker returning to clean up, here's how you do that. What a friggin' triumph, made all the sweeter by the Enterprise finale jokes, but also major consequences. Ruined ship, Shaxx dies, Rutherford's head is ripped off, a cuteness fight between Badgley and Peanut Hamper. And speaking of Peanut Hamper, I love when they throw something in like that, a real plot device from an old show. This one was from the TNG show The Quality of Life. I'm such a nerd. I've got to say, I love that Boimler threw his friends under the bus at the first opportunity to get a promotion in rank and a spot on the Titan, commanded by a guy who would never leave his friends or a promotion in rank and captaincy of a new ship until his service to the story was complete. Little thematic perfection there. Kind of makes me want to see Boimler plus 15 years played by super serious Charlie Day in his first dramatic role as a Starfleet captain. It really is saying something that a gruff, one-note background character like Shaxx sacrificing himself in one last giant destroy it all moment really has me thinking he hasn't died. I mean, this is a cartoon and everything. He was buried in a photon torpedo tube like Spock, and look what happened there. But the thing is, Lower Decks is an episodic with consequences, so this sort of turn is probably permanent. Kind of, you know, another gold-shirted first season security chief we all know. With Boimler on the Titan now, though, hopefully we'll get some B stories with Riker and Troy next season until the 2 stories dovetail. Anyway, between this and Ted Lasso, Coronavirus TV 2020 was still excellent. Obviously, he was very excited about this episode. I watched this episode, and it really made me angry. like furiously angry. And I had to stop and think like, well, first of all, why do you care? It's like, what does it matter? People are like, Rob, if you don't like it, why do you watch it? And why do you go on Twitter and complain? And there's the same people that come and they bitch at me. And what's interesting is when I try and explain to them, eventually it gets to the point where they become personally insulting, and then I block them. And then they wonder why I block them. Well, look, I am here to discuss concepts every single day. You can come here and talk about them with me. Pop culture, genre, Star Trek especially. And what I expect is a back and forth. I don't expect our exchange to turn into personal attacks on myself because we disagree. That to me is weak. That's weak sauce. And that's part of the problem with most people online. There's no real discourse because as and I were talking about on our last Prisoner show, there's a lot of received learning that people have now. People are in their echo chambers. They read something, they parrot it back to you, but they don't really know why it is they believe that. They might watch Star Trek Lower Decks and like it a lot, which is fine. There's stuff to like. But yet when they hear somebody who doesn't like it because they like it, they don't know necessarily why they like it, or maybe they can't articulate it quite well enough, but they certainly don't understand why you don't. If they like it, they don't understand. If you don't like it, well, then you're an enemy, I guess. I mean, I don't... And I get in fights with these people. I'm like, look, my interest in Star Trek is not casual, as I think everybody here knows. So, my love-hate relationship with Lower Decks is... I cannot hate anything that begins with a reference to the first season TOS episode, Return of the Archons. I can't. And the idea they talk about, Landru and all this, can't not hate that. But I want to go back to Mike McMahon, who created Lower Decks. Now, Mike McMahon did something on Twitter. I don't know when it exactly started. Let's see if I go back down to the bottom of it. I mean, it's okay, 2012. He started out 2011. So he was doing this for years. So Mike McMahon he was tweeting out what he had a Twitter feed called, it's still there, you can go read it all, TNG Season 8 on Twitter. And what he would do is he would give your A story and B story in a tweet. I'll give you an example. This one from November 8th, 2011. A planet of suspicious docents abduct Riker for their Museum of Amazing Men. The B story is Geordi and Data are too excited to sleep at their sleepover. Here's another one. Picard faces rogue Vulcans who are destroying planets that pose any minor threat. And then the B story is a transporter error turns Barclay into a mattress. So you can definitely see his sensibilities. Now, what I always thought was interesting about his Twitter feed, the TNG Season 8 Twitter feed, is that there were really, for the most part, some really compelling A-story ideas that he would couple with really ridiculous B-story ideas, but it was always out of love and understanding. But the ideas, there was a lot of, he clearly understood Star Trek. He clearly got Star Trek. However, it was very different. His love of Star Trek was very different than, say, my love of Star Trek is. And what I mean by that is I take Star Trek very seriously. Like, I'm one of these people that is like, okay, well, we're gonna, and I have so many ideas about this now. So, first of all, let me start by giving an example from my own life. So back in 2002, all my friends and I, we started a Comic-Con panel that ends the San Diego Comic-Con every year called Starship Smackdown. Now, Starship Smackdown's premise is that it was born out of every Sunday night we'd get together at this bar, Lola's in L.A. on Fairfax. It's not there anymore. And we would, we'd have these, invariably we'd get into these long conversations. Could the Battlestar Galactica take the USS Enterprise? Could the Enterprise take a Star Destroyer or the Death Star? And we'd have these long, very serious conversations about this. So we decided to turn that into a thing. And it's almost like a stand-up comedy show where Mark Altman is the moderator, and there's usually 6 of us. We are spaceshipologists, and there's a huge audience. The audience has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. Neil deGrasse Tyson came once, one year. You can see that on YouTube. You can see the clip because he broke a tie at the end of Starship Smackdown. But the thing about Starship Smackdown is, and it's the exact opposite of me as a Star Trek fan, is that it's very tongue-in-cheek. So it's like, all right, here's would be my argument about why the USS Enterprise could take a Star Destroyer. A Star Destroyer is full of prissy Brit dudes and clones of Tamora Morrison, and the Enterprise has hot chicks in red miniskirts and knee-high leather boots. The Enterprise wins. That's my logic. Now, that isn't based on any serious examination of either the physics of the Star Wars universe or the physics of the Star Trek universe. But it's still, you still have to know the franchises to understand what I'm doing. Deep dives, you have to understand prissy British dudes and clones of Tamora Morrison. You have to understand the franchise from a certain level to get that joke. You can tell me if that's a good joke or a bad joke or not. But that's how we do Starship Smackdown. And I feel that a lot of fandom is like that. There's a love of these things, but, you know, they don't take it too seriously, and you can make it tongue-in-cheek. And I feel that that's what Lower Decks does all the time. And it drives me fucking crazy. So, for instance, Mike McMahon clearly knows and loves Star Trek. By the way, he wrote the finale. So everything that Larry was saying is absolutely true. Everything that Larry was saying was absolutely true. But my problem is, and go with me here, if you watch the Voyager-esque opening credits of Lower Decks, it shows the Cerritos, for instance. Its warp drive goes out and it ends up tumbling end over end into a recreation of, there's an episode of Star Trek that it recreates kind of in the beginning. It's a 3rd season episode early on, I think Evolution. And great effect of these stars. And so the Cerritos is falling. They can't fix the warp drive. It tumbles away. This is in every opening credit sequence. Then they turn it back on and it flies past you. Then they show a la Voyager when the Cerritos is flying by an ice planet or an ice asteroid. And it's one of its warp nacelles hits some of the ice. And the ice cracks, goes away. And the nacelle cracks and starts venting plasma. And then there's an image of the Romulan D'Deridex warbirds fighting the Borg. The Cerritos is there, and it realizes that it's outmatched, and it runs away. So the opening credits of Lower Decks establish this ship as kind of, it's full of cowards or it's full of incompetent people that make mistakes. Now, I don't like that. Like, my fandom of Star Trek is that I've always looked to Star Trek to see the kind of people that I want to be, that I aspire to be. And the idea that they've made, already the crew of the Discovery is a bunch of incompetent boobs in my estimation. I don't know how any of them, and the way their temperaments or their abilities or whatever, I don't know how they got onto a starship. They seem to succeed by accident. And that's one of the reasons I don't like any of the characters. You know why people love Anson Mount as Pike? Because you like Anson Mount as Pike. It's like, oh, a character from Star Trek has walked onto this show. The Klingons certainly are unrecognizable. The Federation crew, they're all either you've got Burnham, who's like, you know, solve any problem, Burnham. You know, anything she needs to put her mind to, she's the center of the universe, which is just silly to me because she was supposed to be a subordinate. The whole point was that she was the first officer, not the captain. But so, and then the premise of Lower Decks is that this ship, the Cerritos, California class, is a second contact ship, which means after, say, the Enterprise rolls up on a planet and makes first contact with, like, you know, the inhabitants of Beta 3, then another ship would come and deal with the fact that their civilization's sort of cast adrift after Landru has been destroyed. Now, being part of second contact missions doesn't mean you're second class. As a matter of fact, when I started watching the show, I'm like, why are all of these people that are acting very un-Starfleet on a starship on a mission that is arguably more important than just exploration? building a bridge with a new society, a new civilization, and bringing people that maybe weren't aware of spacefaring races or anything like that. But the premise, it's like they took the idea of second contact and they made it into a joke. Well, first contact's where you want to be, but, second contact is what, sloppy seconds? No, second contact would be where cultures clash, cultures collide. And in my mind, that's a great place to set an animated show, because obviously with an animated show, you want there to be a lot of humor. But it's situational humor. Clashing of cultures, fish out of water. I mean, how many fish out of water movies have you seen? Movies, everything from, two Eddie Murphy movies come to mind. Beverly Hills Cop and Coming to America. Great fish out of water stories. Dustin Hoffman in Tootsie. One of my favorite comedies. Dressing as a woman, dealing with that, what that's like, finding out what real women have to put up with day in and day out. That's an example of, those are both examples, Coming to America and Beverly Hills Cop. Axel Foley, Detroit Cop, goes to Beverly Hills, and hijinks ensue. There's a lot of humor to be mined there. So I thought, okay, the characters and the situations in this show could reflect that. So you could do very Star Trekian shows with this premise and make it funny and interesting. We didn't get that. And again, I find the characters, I get it. It's an animated show. It's very Rick and Morty-esque. But what I was hoping for was a real Star Trek show about real Star Trek things that I could believe took place in the Star Trek universe. Now, that's me. That's what I was looking towards. That's what I wanted to get from Lower Decks. I got something else. I got a workplace comedy that could have been set on Earth. And it was just kind of thrown into the Star Trek universe. And in addition to that, because Mike McMahon knows his Star Trek, every single episode is full, chock full of references to previous Star Trek episodes, to the point of being monumentally annoying. Like, I get it, you guys know your Star Trek. It's like when you go to Star Trek conventions and you meet people, they want to out trivia you. Like, you're having a conversation, you're discussing things, and then they'll make a reference to an episode, like, am I right? Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, numbnuts, we're both at a Star Trek convention. We both get it. I don't need to know every other sentence how much you know about Star Trek. You don't need to reference. Let's talk about the issues. Let's have real conversations about what are these Star Trek episodes about. And I feel that there's a large chunk of fandom that loves to talk about, these knowing winks, and they show each other all the time. Oh, I remember that episode. And it was very much perfectly encapsulated in the Saturday Night Live Get a Life sketch. Very much so. You all know, the idea of shipping people. When are Scully and Mulder going to get together? Like that level of discourse. I much more prefer to get into the nuts and bolts of the in-universe stuff in the show. Like, what is the show about? I don't like that fourth wall. Being a fan that's constantly living in that broken fourth wall. Like, when I love, my love of Star Trek is the same way I'll love a book, like literature. And I can't, it's very difficult for me to take it not seriously. And it's one thing to have a movie like Big Bang Theory, or even my own movie, Free Enterprise, or Kevin Smith movie Chasing Amy, or even in Clerks. Like, when Clerks has the conversation about the Death Star workers, the Union workers, the people that were just day laborers that came on the Death Star and had no idea that the rebels were going to blow it up. Now, that's the kind of fan conversation that I love. I thrive on that. What I don't need is every single episode has references about Star Trek that I'm like, why are they there? Like, I would have liked to have seen an entire episode. How do you clean up Beta 3? How do you clean up that society? And look at it from a holistic, that's a storyline. So anyway, but because they're approaching it humorously, when they try and do things that aren't funny, and yet it still remains in a humorous context, I go bananas. In the opening of the season finale, a sister ship to the Cerritos, a new captain. You're introduced to this new captain, and she's pretty fastidious and wants to keep her ship clean. It's kind of charming and funny. Well, within a few moments, her ship is attacked and destroyed. Crew of an entire starship just boom, taken out. They're gone. So you're watching, and it's shocking. Large alien ships approach. You don't know who they are, what they want. They have incredible technology. They destroy a starship. They kill everybody. Now, I objected to this. I went on Twitter and said I objected to this as I put my hand in my water. I objected to this because it seemed out of place for what kind of show Lower Decks was. And then, of course, the Cerritos goes to the rescue, and they get cornered. And you find out that the Packleds, who were introduced in a Next Generation episode called Samaritan Snare, the Packleds that seem like these dim-witted, this dim-witted race, they're only sort of playing possum, but this race steals or they use other they take other people's technology because they can't develop technology on their own. So in this episode, you find out that the Packleds have stolen all of this incredibly advanced tech, and they're running around stealing more. They've become like the Packled. They want to assimilate everything they can and put it into part of the build their armada and become even more strong and destroy people. But basically, they become these murderous thugs where they're willing to kill hundreds, if not thousands, of people. And there's all these shenanigans, but the episode's incredibly violent. And look, I don't care about violence, but I'm like, in the context of Star Trek Lower Decks, when I was watching this, what happens is, to me, what I thought was so insidious about this episode is they straight up kill hundreds, if not thousands, of sentient beings. Now, from a Star Trek standpoint, I was thinking that what was going to happen at the end of this episode is that maybe the Packleds would be shown the error of their ways, and the fact that wouldn't it be better if you developed your own science and your own technology and you could progress on your own instead of stealing other people's tech and turning yourselves into the murderous thugs of the universe, these horrible pirates that have no problem killing thousands of people in their quest for technology, because it's assumed that they've killed many, many tens of thousands to get the technology that they had. Now, a lot of people, I've talked about people, nobody felt this way about the episode but me. Nobody felt the way about this, I'm like, and by the end of the episode, do they talk about the ship, this Federation ship that's destroyed? You know, does Mariner's mom ever have a commentary about how, oh well, I really, I like the captain and I'm never going to see her again? No, one character, the character that gets killed, they have his funeral, but what about everything else? And then there was another thing that Larry talks about, the exocomp. They add an exocomp that we met in a Next Generation episode. And the exocomp is shown as being, it has a stupid name. The exocomp says, well, I've calculated my name. My name is Peanut Hamper. I'm like, okay, dumb, but all right. And the exocomps introduced in Quality of Life, the exocomps were a sentient artificial life form, AI, whatever. Well, the idea that they bring an exocomp on as a Starfleet crew member, I thought was really interesting. I'm like, that's really cool. Just like I loved how Diane Duane made Ensign Narat a Horta. There's actually a Horta from Devil in the Dark, the red hamburger-looking, the pepperoni pizza creature that burns men to a crisp. The Horta actually, once they figured out what was going on, they have great relationships with the Hortas of Janus 6. Well, one Horta had become a member of Starfleet and became a part of the Enterprise crew. I always loved that. So I love this idea that they have this exocomp. And the exocomp has come on board the Cerritos. The exocomp has gone through Starfleet Academy and is now a member of Starfleet. I'm like, well, that's a really cool way to call back a Next Generation episode. But then what do? What do they turn Peanut Hamper into? Peanut Hamper has a moment to step up. And I was like, how interesting that Peanut Hamper, because she's an exocomp, she's in a unique position to actually save the day. And I'm like, that's pretty heady science fiction stuff. But what do they do on this show? No, they turn around and they turn her into a coward. And this is my problem with a lot of modern Star Trek, is that these characters are not aspirational. When the going gets tough, they could have done a really interesting thing by making the exocomp save the day. And maybe people would say, well, Rob, that's the obvious thing to do. Well, okay, then maybe not make Peanut Hamper save the day, but make Peanut Hamper do something interesting that shows why letting letting beings like exocomps into Starfleet is interesting. And I feel like kind of like with a lot of fandom, because I take all of this very seriously. Like, I'm very much an in-universe Star Trek fan. I do not like to break the fourth wall. I do not like to bring in like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna get together. Like, I not that shippers aren't. They're fine. You can ship all you want. Willow, Vesna, ship all you want. That's fine. But I'm not that person. I'm much more interested in the fictional universe and all of that, and have that kind of consistency. And I feel that Star Trek has gone in the exact opposite direction. Star Trek '09 and saddling Anton Yelchin, a real Russian who speaks Russian. They saddle him with a ridiculous accent so they can be evocative of Walter Koenig's bad accent. No, Chekhov is a Russian national. He speaks Russian. The joke of Chekhov is he makes jokes that everything great in the world came from Russia. So when they saddle Anton Yelchin with a bad Russian accent to the point that the computer of the Enterprise doesn't recognize him, that is a fourth wall breaking joke. And I hate that. I hate that. It shatters my ability. It shatters the verisimilitude of the universe. And that's what Star Trek, everything is done now with a wink and a nod. And I feel like even when they're trying to be serious in Discovery, it's, here's Spock, but let's have him smile because, hey, you all remember the time he smiled in the episode The Cage, don't you? Yeah, and let's figure out a reason. He smiled. He's not the guy you know. Let's take him back a peg. And what they're doing is all of that is fourth wall breaking. It's fourth wall breaking storytelling because it's all storytelling decisions that are made based on our perceptions of things as viewers and fans of the show, as opposed to creating real stories that live and breathe on their own within the show, if that makes any sense. So just because they go back to Beta 3 and I get to have jokes about Landru, I'm like, you know what? Fuck all that. Why don't you spend less time giving me endless references to the point of being annoying? It's like a person who comes to a party at Hollywood name drops. That's all they do is name drop. I feel like Lower Decks just name drops classic Star Trek or name drops Next Generation. That's all the time. It's peppered into every conversation. And I'm like, I know, I get it. If they ever do a season 2, they're going to run out of references eventually because they would have covered them all. I hate it. It would have been such a really interesting opportunity to do a workplace show, a funny show, an animated show about the Cerritos going on second contact missions and all of the fraught with peril and fraught with humor that could entail. Again, we've got a new Borat movie coming out, but Borat, while funny, there is an element of truth to, if there was a character like Borat, some of the things that goes on, having immigrants, that fish out of water element. Well, I think it's a great idea for a Star Trek show. And then they'll throw in this season finale episode, if you haven't seen the end, I won't tell you what it was, but yes, they do replay even something from Star Trek Picard, and they give you a very satisfying conclusion with cameos. Let's have some cameos now. And I feel that it's the exact opposite of what they do with Star Trek The Next Generation, where it should stand on its own. We'll give you Admiral McCoy in the beginning. We'll give you Sarek in the third season. But by then, we've had our own. We've done 3 seasons, and we've had 2 references to the original series. Yeah, they brought back in Spock for season 5 and Scotty for season 6, but they'd already established themselves, so they could get away with that. Star Trek Lower Decks, the references it makes my flesh crawl. And what I want from Star Trek is I want a show that provides verisimilitude. Give me the proscenium of the frame that I can believe in. Let me go intellectually into your show. All they do is push me, pull me, push me, pull me back and forth in and out of that fourth wall. I think modern Star Trek does that a lot. And I don't get it. No other great fantasy shows do it. I mean, or they'll do it like, for instance, The Boys. The Boys will do something where you'll recognize, oh, I see what they're referencing. They're doing something ironic about the real world, but it works within the context of the show. So it doesn't break the fourth wall. I feel like Star Trek Lower Decks is a bunch of people at a Star Trek convention trying to show me how much they know about Star Trek Well, I already know they know about Star Trek. You don't have to prove it to me again and 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 again. It makes me want to pull my eyes out with a tablespoon. You know, I mean, it's so annoying, and for me, it gets in the way. I mean, the idea, and then the just wanton death and destruction in a funny show, where people are really, they're being eviscerated. I mean, both the Pac-Leds are now murderous thugs that need to be dispensed with, and it's so un-Star Trek. Let's just fucking kill them all. Get rid of this problem. Let's not solve the problem of the Pac-Leds. Let's just either neutralize them or kill them. It's so not Star Trek. It's not Star Trek. And at the same time, so I have this, look, I smile at a reference to Landru against my better judgment. I think it's cool. But even in the best Star Trek novels, which a lot of them, there's a lot of Star Trek novelists that have written sequels to things. My beloved David Mack, I mean, I love his work. When David Mack writes a mirror universe duology, there is more thought put into what would the mirror universe as portrayed in Star Trek, specifically in Mirror Mirror, what would that universe, let's extrapolate out on that universe and make the mirror universe something that I can believe in. It's not just that people are the opposite. It's not just that good guys are evil. It's not like that at all. The entire universe is different for a reason. It's not literally a mirror like good is not bad, black is not white. It's not like that. It's a real breathing place that just developed differently. So different value systems came to the fore. And that's why I love reading Star Trek novels, specifically Star Trek novels that reference other Star Trek things or bring in characters like Flint from Requiem for Methuselah, who's in the Reeve Stevens Star Trek novel Federation. Tell me about that character. What was that character's history? But they're doing it within the context, inside a Star Trek story, not outside. They assume I know these characters, but they're writing these characters as if they're real within the Star Trek universe. And they're not, you're not constantly pulling and pushing out between our modern day and our modern sensibilities and fans that want to ship Mulder and Scully. That constant, because, and Mike McMahon's TNG Season 8 thread is exactly like that. It's both in and out, in and out. It's us sitting back and going, hey, we love Star Trek. But we love the Mugatu because we know it's just a white ape costume with a horn on top. See, because they didn't have enough money to come up with a new creature. Look, these things are obvious. You understand them. You understand the limitations of why they do the things they do in the show. But that, look, the neural parasites from Operation Annihilate basically look like plastic vomit you'd buy at a party supply store. But within the context of that episode, once they fly and latch onto you and sting you, then you realize it's dire. But if you're constantly going to laugh at the low end neural parasites, then I mean, it's like, I get it. Now shut up and watch the goddamn show. Don't pull me outside the show with your, look at these, isn't this funny? Like, oh, they didn't have enough money to do this the right way, so you can see that it's a salt shaker or whatever. Like, I hate that. I hate that. It's because you've not suspended your disbelief. Now this, again, this is me personally. I don't mean this for everybody. A lot of people don't take these things. I'm sure people are looking at me going, Rob, you are going to have a heart attack and put one foot in the grave if you keep thinking this way. It's just a TV show. I know. So I'm qualifying that, but I'm ranting. I'm telling you about how when I'm watching something, I mean, I don't tell people any of this stuff. I sit at home alone and I rant on the internet about how I don't like things, or on this show to you people, but no one's actually in this room, so I can say whatever the hell I want. But that's, if this gives me, I'm sure I'm getting profiled, if not by some crazy AI, by any fans out there going, this Burnett guy, man, he's a... But I hope this is giving you some insight into why I take Star Trek very seriously. And even comedic episodes, I've said this before, like The Trouble with Tribbles, or A Piece of the Action, or even Shore Leave. Those shows are situational shows. They're situational shows where they give you a patently absurd situation. And this is I thought that Lower Decks was going to wind up being a show more along the lines of what Piece of the Action is, where the Cerritos would roll up to Sigma Osha. Chicago mob's the 20s. What do you do? How do you now that they know the Federation is there, how do you have a second contact mission where you start beaming down advisors who are going to have to go like and deal with that civilization? To me, the situation of it, the absurdity of it, or the Onlys, which they've done books, Miri and all those people. How do they deal with those kids now, the disease being cured and they solve the disease, and how do they reestablish a society there? I mean, there's so much gold to be mined, and if you did that within the context of Star Trek, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to see. But now I have to watch this constant barrage of, listen, if you didn't know how clever we, the writers of this show, are, let us show you. I mean, I'm constantly made aware of the writer's room. I feel like I'm watching Lower Decks, that it's being projected on the wall, but I'm actually sitting in the writer's room, and they're all patting themselves on the back how clever they are. I don't like that. So on one hand, there's certain elements of Lower Decks, like the whole premise, and I do like the characters. I do find their banter and interplay funny, but I would find their banter and interplay funny if it was an Office spinoff. As a Star Trek spinoff, it's annoying as fuck. And I wish they would tell me a goddamn story. Don't give me 10,000 references to 10,000 episodes. You know what's interesting? I submitted a story treatment to Star Trek The Next Generation when I first came to LA. And it was like that. It had references. I was trying to show how smart I was. It referenced like 8 episodes of Next Generation. And I thought, oh, look at how clever I am. I had a clever premise, but all of these references, in doing that, you don't allow the story itself. All of these references get in the way, and I think it diminishes the stories that you could be telling. Now, you don't have to feel that way. You don't have to feel that way about it. But anyway, I do. Now, I want to finish this. I don't think this is really a rant. It's more of an explanation, but there's an article that dropped on Inverse today. It dropped at 6 a.m. And here is a different take on the season finale of Lower Decks that, boy, does it give it a lot of credit. Star Trek just dropped a mind-blowing critique of its founding vision. Uh-oh. What happens to the planets? Okay. In Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Captain Pike says, "Starfleet is a promise. I give my life for you, you give your life for me, and nobody gets left behind." Almost every iteration of Starfleet we've seen adheres to this idealistic rule. But what about Starfleet's impact on cultures and people who are not part of their organization? The United Federation of Planets and its exploratory space fleet might have altruistic goals, but sometimes all of this future space utopia stuff is dysfunctional as hell. The Season 1 finale of Lower Decks, No Small Parts, offers a thought-provoking critique of what Starfleet is supposed to be doing, one that would be tough to imagine in earlier entries of the franchise. Spoilers ahead for Lower Decks Season 1. 2 incidents in no small parts drive home the same theme. Starfleet doesn't always know what's going on, and that the mission to boldly go where no one has gone before often means ignoring the places it's already been. Well, of course, again, that's something that has been proven in certain instances, but I'd like to believe that this is a conceit of modern, well, let's call it postmodern Star Trek, that we can't conceive of people that are actually great at doing all of these things. We have to make them deeply flawed. We have to say, you know what? You're not as utilitarian or as utopian or whatever as you think you are. So we're going to build in, because we don't have any other way to tell. We don't know how to tell aspirational stories anymore. So we're going to take you down a peg. So 2 incidents in no small parts drive home the same theme. Starfleet doesn't always know what's going on, and that the mission to boldly go where no one has gone before often means ignoring the places that it's already been. At the start of the episode, the Cerritos visits the planet Beta 3, only to discover the inhabitants there have gone back to worshipping an evil computer defeated by Captain Kirk some 100 years prior. Meanwhile, the big conflict is all about a silly alien race from the Next Generation called the Packleds. Although previously presented as a joke in the episode Samaritan Snare, they're now super deadly. At the end of the episode, Ensign Mariner and her mom, Captain Freeman, have a frank discussion about how everything that happens in this episode is pretty much Starfleet's fault. Here's how it goes down. Freeman: Starfleet considers Beta 3 a known culture. They have no idea the Batans have regressed. Mariner, that's Starfleet, good at observing, bad at maintaining. We can't just assume that people are going to keep doing the right thing a generation down the road. Why is that the premise? Why? I think that's a false premise. That's another thing that drives me crazy about this episode. Starfleet has advisors. They would, of course, have second contact people to go in and caress a society, and the knowledge that there's other spacefaring people out there or whatever. Of course you'd have to I mean, the idea that they wouldn't do that is silly. And in this show, which is now it's canonical, they had no idea that Batans have regressed. You know where all this comes from? It all comes from the idea that Kirk never checked on Khan's progress in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. That's what they do. There's one idea, like Spock smiling. Let's throw a whole backstory around why he's smiling. And it's like that's just a simple production mistake. It's an inconsistency. But when you try and explain it away in universe, that's not the kind of thing you need to explain away. Those are the wrong things that you concentrate on. And just because Kirk never checked on our progress, as Khan says, doesn't mean that Starfleet doesn't do that. Of course they do. That would be part of their mandate. Otherwise, the galaxy would go to shit. Anyway, early in the episode, Freeman points out that Starfleet has a policy of some... Oh, wait a minute. Some intervention, meaning that when things really go off the rails, Starfleet will do something. But sometimes it takes too long for that positive intervention to happen. So, okay, why? Why do you have to make Starfleet... Why do they have to not... They would know. That's part of their mandate. That's what building the Federation would be. You have a galaxy full of people that you're gonna have to maintain and monitor and make sure are doing well. That would be one of the very mandates of the United Federation of Planets. Throughout Season 1, Star Trek Lower Decks strongly asserts that although Starfleet is awesome and altruistic, its adherence to a lot of specific rules and regulations can make it more bureaucratic than heroic. The entire purpose of the USS Cerritos is second contact, meaning they follow up on alien cultures who have been discovered and make sure everyone is okay. In an average episode of TOS or TNG, these kinds of discoveries are treated with awe and wonder. In Lower Decks, we're getting a glimpse of the kind of laid-back imperialism. Yes, another reason why the show is problematic to me. Laid-back imperialism. This is a function of trying to make Star Trek more like today. When really we should be making Star Trek should be aspirational. Making Star Trek more like it is today, which is what we've been getting since 2009, is not Star Trek. It's fundamentally going backwards from what Star Trek is supposed to be. Starfleet helps out these various alien planets, but really only when things get out of hand. And when that happens, it looks like the vast majority of Starfleet ships are on cleanup duty. Nope, that is again, I think, a lame function or a lame assertion of this particular show and modern Trek in general. The interesting thing with this critique is that Lower Decks isn't a spoof. It is Star Trek canon. No, it is a spoof. Make no mistake. They just say it's Star Trek canon, but it is a spoof at the same time, which is also problematic to me. This is what Star Trek having a conversation about its optimistic ideals looks like. Lower Decks is more like Picard than you realize. Although the tones and storylines could not be more different, the general attitude toward the Federation and Starfleet in both Lower Decks and Season 1 of Picard is basically the same. It is. In the Season 1 debut of Picard, Jean-Luc explains he quit his job as Admiral because the organization was no longer Starfleet. In other words, because Starfleet shut down his rescue of the Romulans from a big supernova and outlawed synths. He felt his superiors had abandoned the organization's principles. There's a precedent for this kind of thing in Next Generation. Remember when that Admiral in Picard yelled at Jean-Luc and told him where to stick it? Well, a very similar conversation happens between Picard and a different Admiral, Admiral Satie, but they don't know that in this article, in the Next Generation episode Descent. Oh, it is? Okay, Descent's a different episode. I was thinking of Drumhead. Basically, when Starfleet finds out that Jean-Luc let a Borg drone go free, the party line becomes, forget all this seeking out new life stuff. We only care about fixing huge problems. Well, not really. When things get difficult, Starfleet people who stick up for the real ideals of Starfleet are actually outliers. In the Season 1 finale of Discovery, Burnham refuses to go through with a plan that would destroy the Klingon homeworld, even though it would help the Federation win the war. This kind of thing goes back to Captain Kirk refusing to kill the Gorn captain in the episode Arena, even though if he had, Starfleet would have been fine with it since the Gorn had already destroyed several Federation colonies. That's the point, is that they didn't. And we're seeing Kirk is representing the entire Federation in Arena. The Federation, nobody in the Federation would have killed the Gorn. They wouldn't have killed the Gorn. That's why they're the Federation. That's why they're aspirational. They have brought back all of this stuff to modern day. They brought back the Federation. That's why modern Star Trek doesn't work as Star Trek. They've turned it into today, as opposed to a future that we want to live in and be a part of. And I think that the writers don't get it because they don't know how to write something like that. Lower Decks is saying that as time goes on and Starfleet gets more rules, it gets harder for the idealistic heroes to emerge. That is such a modern idea. The problem is, it's not that way in the future. The 21st century is a mixed bag. The biggest difference between past Star Trek TV shows and the ones in production now is that each version, from Discovery to Picard to Lower Decks, actively wrestles with the day-to-day practicalities and hopeful vision of the future actually works. The status quo of Earth is generally peaceful in these imagined futures, but unlike TOS or TNG, the newer shows have gestured towards something that Lower Decks just came right out and said. Maybe all of this stuff takes way more work than is possible. Riker was able to come to rescue the Cerritos at the last second, but what about everyone else? Starfleet's job is to explore the galaxy, not to save it. Yet the galaxy very much needs saving. No, that is a modern thing. I mean, that's what's so great about Star Trek is the galaxy is there. That's what we're doing. The Federation is going out there, and we've spent hundreds of years bettering ourselves and creating civilizations that are aware of these things. We're not like today. And modern Star Trek, Lower Decks, Picard, Discovery is all about wallowing in the muck of our civilization now, because nobody believes that we can have a show that aspires to the utopian ideals of what the Star Trek future showed us in the original series. That is not to say it doesn't show us flawed human beings and people doing bad shit. It does. But the point is that our characters are able to overcome those things. And they, by proxy, are standing in for the Federation, for Earth, for Vulcan, for Teller, for Andor. I mean, all of these things. That's what the Federation's all about. But modern Star Trek, they don't know how to do it. And it fucking pisses me off. So, there you go. Modern Star Trek, to me, is not Star Trek. It is Star Trek by way of, I don't know how to write that kind of a future, so let's make it look more like today. Or let's make it look more like Game of Thrones. Or let's make it look like something else where everything is deeply flawed. Because I know how to write that, but I haven't read enough science fiction to write a really interesting sci-fi story that doesn't also tear down the legacy of Star Trek. Now, you can love I'm not saying you can't love modern Star Trek. You can. You can love modern Star Trek. But modern Star Trek is telling you that basically even the future is shit. And that's what shirt tails, that's the definition of the shirt tails. You went from the shirt sleeves down to the shirt tails. Everything that has anything to do with Star Trek over the past 11 years has been created by people that are shirt tail riders. There's nobody there who really knows how to roll up their sleeves and do something new and aspirational. That's why I fucking hate modern Star Trek. So there you go. Anyway, I say what you want about me, but there you go. Are you excited now? Let's see what you guys have to say. Uh-huh. We've got letters. We've got letters. And let's see what letters. Oh, you know what? As a matter of fact, I even have more letters than even I knew. So let's get on that, son, as John Schnepp would say. Dun, 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 dun. My, oh my, oh my, oh my. There's certainly a lot of letters here. Many, many letters. Let me make sure I get to all. Wow, I didn't realize how many letters there are. There are many. Bear with me for a moment. Okay. I think. Oh wait, are you guys watching all of this as I'm zipping through here? That's not good. Undo. I'm going through my spam filter live on the show. Not good. That was not a good thing to be doing. So I apologize for that. There you go. See, that was see, you get to look behind the curtain as I'm going to get these letters, which I apologize for because I didn't organize them. And you can see my spam thing that I empty every week. So, letters, people. Let's get to the letters. Shall we? Okay. This one comes from Jason Webster. Hi, Rob. I hope you and the fantastic members of the Post-Geek Singularity have enjoyed the week and have lined up a fun weekend. I would like to take this opportunity to delve a little deeper into the faults of the Disney live-action film Mulan. Ooh, interesting. While I liked the film, despite great effects, production design, cinematography, and solid acting, it was hampered by the story. This is where I believe Disney was the conscience and history and reputation as the producer of children and family-oriented films. Apart from one brief period, they have always been hesitant releasing PG-13 fare under their own moniker. Disney's live-action Mulan film shares much in common with Disney films released in the period between the late 1970s and the early 1980s. The Black Hole in 79, Watch in the Woods in 1980, Tex in 1982 with Matt Dillon, Something Wicked This Way Comes in 83, Never Cry Wolf, and Trenchcoat. Though fine films, they were caught in a type of cinematic no man's land. Movies audiences weren't expecting as they were too sophisticated for children, yet not sophisticated enough for adults. Before I go any further, let me ask a question. Why do studios undertake the practice of creating and acquiring production and distribution companies? Well, the reasons are multifaceted: to produce and distribute films they don't want to make under their own studio, to acquire the big earning intellectual properties and eliminate the competition. So in the case of Disney, because the films, which I mentioned above, performed poorly, they created and acquired companies such as Touchstone Pictures and Miramax. Well, actually, they created Touchstone. They did acquire Miramax because it was a great way of undertaking such adult-oriented projects through their subsidiaries while preserving their own studio's reputation of making fare for children and families. This is one of the reasons why they acquired both Lucasfilm and 20th Century Fox. It wasn't just so they own intellectual properties such as Star Wars, Avatar, and Alien. There is no singular reason behind such business strategies. So with Mulan being solely Disney, there was a snowball's chance in hell that they were going to make a PG-13 movie with the level of epic battles seen in Asian cinema, as this would require depiction of blood and deaths. Nor could they keep Mushu and the songs for two reasons. Firstly, because those were largely the reasons the animated film downright bombed in China and performed in such a mediocre fashion in the rest of Asia. Finally, the result would have compromised the film through an uneven tone, and the film would have flopped even harder in China than it has. The thing that people wanted, something that retained much of the animated film, yet looked and felt akin to the 2009 Mulan film or Red Cliff, John Woo's film, really. Could anyone honestly say they would allow their children to see that, especially if their children were under the age of 10? The 2020 live-action film does work better than the 1998 animated film as a straight adaptation of the original source material, a poem entitled Ballad of Mulan. However, the trouble is the poem is not enough to build a 2-hour film around. So as I have stated earlier, with regards to the live-action Mulan, the real fault of the film laid with the screenplay. From a story perspective, they had allowed themselves an extra 20 or 30 minutes where they incorporated a little more from another of the original source material on Mulan in the shape of the fierce and filial girl from Northern Wei, which was written by Zhang Shaoxian. This would have slightly lengthened a certain plot element that would have afforded the film and its story the opportunity to breathe, and as a consequence, they would have had a film that would have gathered wider acceptance. That one plot element within Mulan I'm referring to is where she and fellow Chinese conscripts learn to develop trust and teamwork. It is most obvious it was one of the few scenes that were handled too briefly. They could have achieved the extension of that element within the story through incorporating a few lead-up scenes. The first coming right after Mulan has joined the army and her first altercation with Honghui, a 2-minute scene where Commander Tung splits the camp into two as he discovers the Chinese conscripts have no combat experience compared to the conscripts from Zhangbei. The next scene shows Mulan's relationship with the Chinese conscripts becomes strained further after she defeats their best swordsman in a sparring duel, which happens to be Honghui after they have received resentment and abuse from the Sangbei conscripts for failing a drill. This brings me to the next key element they should have addressed more clearly. I have no qualms with Mulan being highly skilled in swordsmanship, having been trained by her father. However, they could have incorporated a 6-minute sequence that begins at showing her totally unskilled in archery, and then her determination sees her put in the extra training at nights while the majority of her colleagues sleep, which is juxtaposed with images showing her gradually improving during daily exercises as a result. This sequence ends at night, where Hong Hui witnesses her training hard and admires her tenacity. This alleviates the criticisms leveled at Mulan, that Mulan is too much of a Mary Sue. She is not quite a Mary Sue in the film. It's just the scenes that show her improving, growing, and undertaking self-realization we often associate with the hero's journey narrative are all too brief and have very little to no impact. So consequently, they are easily missed. As where the sequence I have suggested elaborates and expands on the growth resulting in delivering impact that allows engagement between the character and the audience as it resonates. You then have the river bathing scene where Hong Hui interrupts Mulan and offers to bury the hatchet with her. We then get a 3-minute scene consisting of juxtaposition of Mulan's determination in drills and Tung's drive to mold them into cohesive and well-trained army. But I've digressed. The first element culminates in a 3-minute scene showing Mulan and her fellow Chinese conscripts achieving successful completion of a training drill requiring trust and teamwork, while the second element is completed by an 8-minute scene where she proves her superior fighting prowess while leading them to successfully quelling an attempted attack on the camp by a small force from within Khan's army, which results in her receiving the rank of captain and leadership of Zhang and the vanguard. I feel more could have been done with Gong Li's character by providing the reasons why she hitched her wagon to Khan. Just a brief 3-minute scene through flashback and exposition when she first confronts Mulan that would have provided the opportunity for the completion of her story arc at the end to have gravitas. Was she a loyal confidant betrayed by the Emperor, or were her male siblings killed fighting his forces in a previous battle? Was she captured by Khan and developed Stockholm Syndrome over him, or simply forced to obey him? Anything to explain why she joined Khan. Then there's a scene that expresses that Khan's rage-fueled lust for revenge has gone too far, and we see the camera pan in on an extreme close-up of her reaction in that moment, showing she is becoming perturbed by Khan's behavior. The rest of the movie could have played as is, with only minor adjustments. Much of what I have suggested is straight out of one of Zhang Shozan's classic 19th century novel on the Mulan legend. Because the film incorporated the few elements from the 1998 animated feature, the infusing of elements from the novel would have provided the producers the opportunity to please both the fans of the late 90s Mulan and those of the classic Chinese texts concerning the legend. I understand about why the Chinese are perplexed with the film's content of Kui. However, if more of the fierce and the filial girl from Northern Wei had been incorporated in the screenplay, I believe they would have been prepared to extend a little leeway to the filmmakers regarding its interpretation of Kui. To really do the story of Mulan justice, it has to be a trilogy or a miniseries or a television series. If you're going to do a trilogy, then each film must be approximately around 2.5 hours in length. To yourself and the beautifully engaging and insightful members of the Post-Geek Singularity, have a blissful weekend. That from Jason Webster. Jason, I like this letter. I think you're absolutely right. I think you're really hitting on things. I would say this, and I felt this when I first heard that they were going to make a live-action Mulan. I think it was a bad idea. I think it was a bad idea because as an animated film, it works. But when you're delving into a realistic depiction of the Mulan legend, I don't think it works as a Disney film anymore. To actually tell the straightforward story of Mulan, you're getting into areas that they don't necessarily want to get into in a Disney film. They need a little bit... Like when you do a live-action Beauty and the Beast, you still have Belle and the Beast, you know? But when you're dealing with a live-action Mulan, suddenly you're dealing with battles and death, you know, and I guess people can die in animated series, but once you make it realistic and you take out the fantasy elements of it, then it becomes something else entirely, and they're still yet trying to make a Disney movie. So that gets a little problematic, I think. So it doesn't necessarily always work. But yeah, it depends. I don't think every movie should be translated. I mean, Jungle Book works as a live action movie. Lion King, I don't think worked as well, but it can work because when you're still dealing with talking animals. which immediately puts things in a fantasy context. Same with Beauty and the Beast. As live action or animation, it works. But Mulan, you take out the fantasy elements of the animated version and you set it smack dab in the real world, then things change. They're different. So Bunyan Snipe writes in and says, "Hey Rob, with all the speculation regarding No Time to Die's release schedule." Oh wait, I already read this one. I already read Bunyan Snipe's thing the other day. That was a good letter, but I already read that. I apologize for reading that one. Let me go to where Mark Chure, our own toxic fan, ladies and gentlemen. Mark C is here, and hopefully he's listening. Dear Rob and the chat, yesterday a letter was sent discussing the lackluster scores for both the MCU and Hollywood in general these days. As a whole, I completely agree with the letter writer, although I think Brian Tyler's score for Iron Man 3 is the best the MCU has to offer. Why is this so? Well, there actually is an answer, and it really doesn't have anything to do with evolving tastes in music. Our tastes have simply evolved as we've learned to love mediocrity over the terrible. No, about 20 years ago, composer Hans Zimmer decided to create software that allowed for the streamlining of film scores. What has this brought us? Well, once a cut of a film is to a certain point, a director will often set the film to music using temp tracks. The new software allows the composer to create something resembling the temp track as closely as possible without plagiarism. Hence, if you watch that video on his piece Time from Inception. But the music we get sounds so much like the music we've already heard, it doesn't register. Or in an effort to sound as different as possible, take two notes of a known existing theme, draw them out using the original beat or tempo to subconsciously feel familiar, much like Zimmer has done with Batman. My point being, it's led to music with weak melodies and lazy writing. So, why are film scores so forgettable? The answer is Hans Zimmer. On a totally unrelated topic, I need help defining the title to a Buster Keaton film. My memory of the film distills down to one comedic stunt bit. Keaton is in a town on a construction site and gets a bucket stuck on his head. As he stumbles through the site, he creates all kinds of havoc. People are knocked off the scaffolding, the old ladder knocking people down gag is used, and the bit ends with Keaton finally getting the bucket off his head just as the front of the building looks to fall on him. But as almost his signature, he's standing in the exact same spot of the caseload floor window. Again, if you or the chat know the title, I would be very appreciative. My research has not been fruitful. Well, Mark C., thank you for writing in. Look, I agree with you. I mean, talking to Lucas Kendall, who published Film Score Monthly magazine, he's constantly telling me about how, a lot of the composers would write music by hand. And the idea, strong melodies and strong themes. Even when I came up with the theme I didn't come up with the theme. When I asked Alexander Bornstein to come up with the theme to Robservations, you know that theme. It's this theme. Let's play it again, but just listen to the theme of this theme. So when I asked him that, I said, I want something that I can whistle. That was what I told Alexander Bornstein. And I said, maybe, obviously it has an amazing stories vibe to it. I want it familiar, but I want it something you could whistle. That's what I told him. And I think nowadays we get a lot of music score is not as melodic as it used to be. It's very much oral wallpaper in a way. And it's very seldom that you get a really distinct theme. And, John Williams was great at themes. Jerry Goldsmith was great at themes. I mean, one of my favorite themes, ever in a movie is Jerry Goldsmith's theme to Capricorn 1. Very strong theme. I miss that. There is an Avengers theme and there is a Batman theme and all of that, but it's certainly, I want to hear more themes. I want to hear things that I can whistle. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Everybody can whistle Raiders of the Lost Ark. Go ahead. Do it with me now. Well, I won't do it. You do it. Whistle. Dun, 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 dun. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows Star Wars. I want that to come back. I want to be able to whistle more movie themes, but I think you're absolutely right. Jeffrey Mao is here, ladies and gentlemen. Jeffrey Mao says, "Greetings, Rob, and the members of the Post-Geek Singularity. Recently, I purchased On Her Majesty's Secret Service on Blu-ray. This in itself is significant in that this is the only non-Daniel Craig James Bond film that I have owned on Blu-ray. What? In fact, I only have Goldfinger, The Living Daylights, and GoldenEye on DVD. I think that's all I have, although for some reason I have the impression I have from Russia with Love. I'll have to go back and check. This letter won't be a review of On Her Majesty's Secret Service per se, as it's pretty well known here, but more of a discussion about my lack of collecting Bond films on home video, a few thoughts about On Her Majesty's Secret Service sprinkled here and there, and why I decided to get On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So I'd been feeling nostalgic about On Her Majesty's Secret Service after hearing of Diana Rigg's death, and she's one of my favorite Bond girls. The disc was on Amazon for a good price, and I figured since I didn't have many Bond films, I'd get this one. I guess part of the reason why I don't have many of the Bond films on home video like DVD or Blu-ray is that I simply watched them so much as a kid, I didn't feel the strong urge to then get them again. I think it was my cousin who copied a bunch of them onto VHS for me, or I'd record them off TV. Also, probably what happened is after I started to read all the Fleming novels, I got into this the book is better than the film mindset, so the films were devalued in my estimation. Also, I tended to, at least early on in the DVD and Blu-ray era, buy mainly new releases. I would, of course, go back and buy older films, but generally not the ones I'd seen so much of, like the Bonds. So I never got, like, the complete set or whatever. I just picked and choosed. Also, and this opinion might be controversial or not, but Bond films never seemed to me to be great examples of cinematic excellence. They were all professionally well done, for sure, with large budgets and top-tier production design, costumes, sets, props, and the like, but they're never going to win any Academy Awards. The main creative crew were company guys like Guy Hamilton or John Glenn or Lewis Gilbert, which is all very, very true. They directed Bond films, but nothing else of note. Competent and all, but clearly the series was producer-driven and they did the jobs that they were told to. Bond films seemed to exist in their own bubble. People would watch Dr. No or From Russia with Love or Goldfinger, but never watch any of the other films from 62, 63, or 64. It's like, how would you watch The Three Stooges but never watch anything else in black and white from 1935? As for On Her Majesty's Secret Service, there's a lot about it that explains why it holds a special place for most Bond fans. It's a unique and distinctive film for many reasons. The only George Lazenby film, the only one where he gets married, and the first film where he skis. It served as a kind of pivot point transitioning from old Bond to new Bond. When Bond is checking out of the hotel where he first meets Tracy, he's carrying a bag of golf clubs. This would be the last time that we see Bond have anything to do with golf, sadly. This is the only Bond film set in Europe during the swinging 60s. We see M's estate, quarterdeck for the only time. As far as I can tell, it's the only Bond film set during Christmas, or even making a reference to that time of year. During the infamous opening credit sequence, where Bond says this never happened to the other fellow, does he start to turn and look at the camera as it fades to the title sequence? I never noticed this before. If he did, then he's a cheeky bugger. Or maybe it was passed off as, yeah, that's just where his eye line was going. Or maybe that's how he was directed, but, doesn't hurt to throw in a look while delivering what was already a pretty fourth wall breaking line anyway. If you're going to have him say that, you might as well have him do that. You could think of it as a bit of a wink to the audience to prepare them for what's in store. In terms of how the film looked, it looked fine to me, I guess. I bought the British version, so oddly the 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment logo and fanfare come up first. I guess they had distribution rights in the UK. It looked like how a Blu-ray of a 1969 film should look. I don't know how well cared for the negatives and elements of the older Bond films are. Oh, they're well cared for. I think I remember someone mentioning something about recent transfers of Bond films, but I'm not familiar with that. So if there's anything that you can add to that, Rob, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, they were all transferred by Lowry, but like 10 years ago. If it ever happens, I'd be up for getting the original Connery films on 4K. God, me too. Give it a proper restoration a la Spartacus or Lawrence of Arabia. As for what's next, I'm not sure. I have some stuff I want to finish watching. I'm really not sure if I can get through the Jodorowsky set. I watched a little bit of El Topo this morning, and it is bizarre with a capital B. Yes, it is. I don't know if I can handle watching him as El Topo riding around with his real-life naked son the whole time. Sometimes stuff just doesn't suit certain people, and why force yourself to watch something that you don't enjoy? I like to challenge myself, for sure, but if it's just too weird, why bother? Wait, until next time, I am, as always, your humble chairman, Jeff. Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. Look, I really like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, too. I mean, I love Bond films, but the secret to James Bond is not a lot of the Bond films are great movies. Like you said, they're competent. and I know it's blasphemous for me to say, but a lot of them are pretty creaky now, but I still love the whole franchise and what it represents. They really are a relic of the Cold War about a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, and that's why I love them. But you're not wrong. You are not wrong. Let's see what you guys are. There's been a lot of activity here in the chat over here. Let's go see what everybody is saying. Let's go back because I know a lot of people have been saying things, and let's go back to where we were. Where was I? I don't even remember. Wow, there's a lot going on here. Willow, there is Willow. Hey, Jared Snyder became a member. Willow says, now that both Bond and Dune have moved, what movies are still slated to release in 2020 that you're looking forward to? I'm not holding my breath for Wonder Woman to make its release date. I am intrigued in The Father with Anthony Hopkins. The Father looks great, and the only other movie that I'm really excited for that I have not seen either is playing now, and that's Brandon Cronenberg, David Cronenberg's son, his film Possessor. I am dying to see Possessor, and I have not seen it, and it is killing me that I haven't seen it. Hey, Swack Props became a member. Thanks, Swack Props, for becoming a member. Did you see that I was talking about you earlier in the show? I don't know, because you sent this in before. I don't know if you're here or not. So you know what, Willow? Other than that, man, there's really nothing else that I'm looking forward to that I can think about. The Father looks great. I love those kinds of stories. Everything. You know what I'm really looking forward to? The Expanse season 5 looks great. Looks like they're really skewing close to the book. Obviously, I want to see The Mandalorian season 2. I don't think there's any movies left that I'm really excited to see, and what a bummer. Oh, look at Francisco Matalana just became an imagination connoisseur. It's so crazy to see the colored things pop up. I see, it's pretty fun. I like this idea. I like this membership thing. It makes it fun for me. Mr. Tickle Trunk sent in a super chat. Well, thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. I appreciate that. Simon sends in a tip and says, hey, Rob, has anyone told CBS that their all-access app for the smart TVs, LG, Samsung, is crap? It's always been crap. Their app always sucked. $9.99 per month for a crap service of CBS to have to reset my gateway and test the ping download upload of my AT&T. By the way, I have the ultimate internet. And then Simon goes on to say something else. Package. One would think that the mighty CBS would at least put out a quality app for their smart TVs. The same in regards to Kurtzman Trek to be quality. Has anybody ever sat him down and tried to explain to him how to make better Star Trek episodes? Star Trek is not Star Wars. You are correct. So thank you for that, Simon. Jeff Yerke. Hey, Jeff became a member. We'll say hi to your wife, Jeff. And I mean that in a very respectful way, not in a weird, creepy way. Raging Raptor became a member. Carrie's became a member. That's so funny. I forgot to turn this off. I've never had to... Seeing these things is new, crazy. Jamie Cruz became a member. Damo Davies sends in a tip and says, greetings from the UK. All the best. How many ears does Spock have? 3. The left ear, the right ear, and the final frontier. You know, I've never heard that before. But shame on you. Shame. Shame. Mr. Tickle Trunk sent in another super chat. Fernando Barrero sent in a super chat. Thanks, Fernando. Whenever I hear the name Fernando, I always think of ABBA. You must get that all the time. Stubble McShave sends in a chat and says, I'm still waiting for Swack Props to send you a replica of the book from The Name of the Rose. Best to handle it with gloves when it comes. I don't know, man. That's up to... I don't know if Cal would do that. I don't know. Where's the Donnie Darko book? Mr. Tickle Trunk sent in another super chat and said, if you start telling people that letter from Doc Brown is real, you may end up at a comfortably padded room. You'll even get a snuggly jacket. Well, Mr. Tickle Trunk, it's not the letter from Doc Brown was a funny thing that Swack Props was doing. It's the sports almanac. Swack was just having a little fun with me. Cal was having a little fun with me, and those are just making it fun. But no, it's the actual sports almanac that he made. That's the point. The letters that he sent to me were just fun little asides. Oh, Francisco Metalana or Metiana, I don't know which, you upgrade your membership. I didn't even know you could do that. See, this whole membership thing is new. Can you upgrade that quickly? It's amazing. Swag Props is here. He sends in a tip and says, glad you like the stuff, R&B. The Diagramma Veritatis is actually from Angels and Demons, which I consider the best of the Dan Brown adaptations. It is. I should have said that. I think it is the best of the Dan Brown adaptations. And I just said the Da Vinci Code. You know, I really should have said Angels and Demons because that's the first one of the books. So I should have. You were correct. I don't know why I said. I just think Da Vinci Code because that was my. Yeah. So, but again, I can't thank you enough for this bag of goodness. I didn't even bring up the National Treasure stuff you sent me, but amazing. Your work's amazing, man. And you know that the map to Erebor. I don't know why you don't make those. And I mean, and get them framed and self-framed versions of those because those are so great. Sister Harrow is here. Well, thank you, Sister Harrow, for a nice super chat. Rob, my interest in Star Trek is not casual. Me, I know. I've tweeted with you about Star Trek and didn't understand a word you said. I'm sorry about that. But touche, Sister Harrow. See, that's the way you can get a zinger. You can get one over on me that's true with being still being respectful and funny. Swack Props goes on to say, I just finished watching Raised by Wolves. While it is by no means perfect, its depiction of androids is far superior than what we saw in Picard. It's refreshing to watch something so new and so well-rounded. Amanda Collin as Mother is a revelation. She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. Now, I haven't finished that, but now I can't. Now that The Boys is ending today, I can go back and start binging something else. But yeah, it's amazing. The Star Trek Picard in its depiction of AI and synths is the most brain-dead sci-fi I've seen in I don't know when. I mean, that stuff was brain-dead. Metropolis in 1927, in a silent film, has way more understanding of artificial intelligence and synthetic life than Star Trek Picard in 2020 does. It's embarrassing. Calvin Bowes sends in a tip and says, with movies like No Time to Die getting continually pushed, what happens with the films if there are no theaters to play them in? That's a good question. Because the whole reason to push them is to have theaters to play them in. If you don't have theaters to play them in, what are you going to do? That's very, very an interesting question. I don't know the answer, Calvin. I don't. Will the situation, that situation, will we ever get to see No Time to Die, or will they keep it in the vault forever? Well, that's a good question. Look, nobody wants the situation. Nobody wants to not see movies in the theater. But there is a reality now. I mean, COVID cases are going up. We've had more COVID cases yesterday or today in the United States than we've had since August. I mean, it's amazing to me. Now, I understand you can't defend against viruses in a pandemic, but why is our White House? Why did COVID suddenly get into the White House in October, end of September, October, when people have been sheltering at home since March? It should have been incredibly safe, but it's because, hey, how many times do you have to flagrantly watch the people that are leading this country not wear masks, go to events where they're not paying attention to protocol, and now look where we're at? I don't know. It's not good. We got to get better. We got to do better. Phage Lives sends in a super chat and says, are you really shocked at how Lower Decks turned out? I mean, Discovery turned me off on Star Trek, just how bad the writing was. Well, you know, Mike McMahon, he loves Star Trek, but he's one of those people that is I understand it's hard to take things like Star Trek seriously, and my love of Star Trek, I can't tell a fan or a professional how they can and can't like Star Trek. All I can tell you is how I like Star Trek and how I explain it, how what it is to me. And to me, I like getting into the universe. I don't want a fourth wall. I am not looking in on Star Trek from my perspective here, looking at it as an audience member through a screen. I am trying to imagine what the Star Trek universe would be like in real life if it really existed. That's how my mindset is. That's why the best Star Trek novelists do the exact same thing. There have been novelists like Diane Duane, who wrote a book called Doctor's Orders, or John Ford, who wrote a book called How Much for Just the Planet, where they do bring situational humor back. But now, I mean, there's a certain kind of person that I've met all my life, starting in high school. I used to call them drama clubbers. Oh, those people are drama clubbers. Where first of all, they're pretentious fucks because they're already in the drama department. But they look at everything from their pretentious, I know more than you outlook. Like me, drama clubbers would frown on me for liking Star Trek as much as I did, for treating it as seriously as I did. But I feel like now the drama clubbers are the people that are making Star Trek. And they're coming at it from this attitude. They're making it, hip and now, and let's make it like Thrones, and let's make it not woke, or make it as woke as we can, and we'll make it of today. But the thing is, Star Trek is classical. It deals with contemporary issues, but through a very, very classical prism. Classical characters, they've contemporized Star Trek. Lower Decks is a contemporary sitcom set in the Star Trek universe, and it makes me, there's some things about how I like it, but there's a lot of people that like that. I mean, there's so much of fandom. I would say 80% of fandom is I knew people would eventually eat Lower Decks up, because most fans are watching things through the TV. They're not in the universe. They're watching it removed. And I know that seems strange, but that's how most fans are. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want to watch programming created by people that are looking at Star Trek through the lens. I want to watch. Nicholas Meyer got into the Star Trek universe when he wrote Star Trek II. Eric Jedrinson got into the Star Trek universe when he wrote the unmade Star Trek The Beginning script, and then the concept of dealing with the Romulan War. He was and fans who are making fan films are inside the universe. Unfortunately, sometimes they're inside the universe with an outside perspective. So, what can you do there? It's all there, but I'm not going to tell people how they should and shouldn't like Star Trek. Everybody who likes is going to like Star Trek in their own way. I just would rather watch Star Trek that is made by people that are inside the universe as opposed to outside the universe looking in. And that's what modern Star Trek has been for 11 years. And it drives me crazy. And I hate it. Captain Spire sent in a super chat and said, Star Trek The Paradise Makers was a better fan-made work. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen The Paradise. That's not familiar to me. And I did a lot of research into Star Trek fan films. You can see what I was working on before we got sued. I never got to the live-action portion because, as I explained, for those of you who might be interested in the project that I was in on the Burnettwork website, I put up 3 documentary pieces. I was working on the visual effects sequences for the first half of the Star Trek Axonar fan film that we were doing, and I was deep, deep, deep inside the universe, let me tell you. And then we got sued, so I was going to use the effects sequences. You can watch them on if you go to the Burnettwork page on your browser, it's just down a little bit. You can see the 3 documentaries. I'm dropping an epic hour-long documentary about the making of the Vulcan scene. That's just 3 minutes. That's the only live-action Star Trek that got directed for the Axonar project that's an actual scene as opposed to people being just interviewed. Nick Parrish is here. What's up, Rob? Well, I'm glad I made the right move not paying for Mulan on Disney+. Now, just a month after coming out on Plus, I got a ticker on my phone from AMC saying I own Mulan on demand now. I'm still waiting for when it's free on Disney+. But, Rob, this is an example of what I said in a past letter, which is that the euphoria about PVOD got too high. There may be one positive from this, though, that Scott Mendelson noted, which is that the true savior of theaters is Mulan's fumbled release. Oh, I agree. If Mulan had worked, then maybe. But also Tenet. People like movie theaters. They like movie theaters. They like them. Movie theaters are great. They'll get back to them eventually. Mercer Create sends in a super chat and says the Orville got it right. You're pretty correct about that. The Orville gets it right, because a lot of the Orville humor is situational. It's the kind of humor that I like. I think they do a really good job. Sometimes it skirts that line, but for the most part, you're right. Captain Robert April is here. Hello, sir. I think the shit ton of refs in Lower Decks is an attempt to reestablish the fan relationship that was destroyed by Discovery and Picard. Did they try too hard? Maybe. I think they did try too hard. I think you're right about that. But we'll see. Look, a lot of the fan base has really come around. They like Discovery. I mean, they like Lower Decks. They like Lower Decks because they get the reference. Like, oh, I get that. I understand. So, they've developed all that. They like the characters. Because, look, if you put those characters, it'd be a wacky, fun show to watch every week. It's a sitcom. It's Friends. It's Big Bang Theory. It's Rick and Morty. It's whatever whatever your favorite comedy thing is. The characters have that witty cartoon banter. But I was hoping we would get an actual real Star Trek show set in the Star Trek universe that could have been comedic, but it would have felt like Star Trek instead of being a transposed modern show into the Star Trek universe. Jeff Yerke says, he sends in a tip, hello, sir. Hi, Rob. I'm right there with you on Lower Decks. I firmly believe Manny Cotto and Mike Sussman on Enterprise did, by and large, a much more thoughtful job of retconning Trek. They wanted to serve the story. Miss Yerke sends her regards. The Yerk Man. Well, you send my regards right back to Mrs. Yerke. Yeah, but I agree. I think, by the time you get to Enterprise Season 4, everybody was having a great time. There's some great stuff in Enterprise Season 4, although while I like all that filling in of Trek canon, I thought sometimes they went a bit too far. Rather than deal with things like, we don't always, when you're making a prequel show, you don't always have to deal with the one person in the universe you already know. Well, we've heard of T'Pau, so let's put T'Pau in there. Okay. But when you do that every episode, it gets a little frustrating. Mr. Tickletrunk sends in a super chat and says, you've perfectly focused my emotions into words on Lower Decks. It's a Star Trek memes Reddit thread written by elbow-nudging too cool for schoolers. Yep, it is. And with the success of Lower Decks, they get even more insufferable. But that's okay. Mr. Tickletrunk says, Star Trek is supposed to be timeless. It is. Modernizing it or making it more relevant is the best way to date it. It's writers that can't write optimism. 100%, Mr. Tickletrunk. Not just because you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay, but you are absolutely correct. That's a little Star Trek 4 for you. 200 Watt Studios sent in a super chat and said, this is not a show about Trek. It's a show by people who don't watch Trek, made by dumb people for dumb people who think they heard Trek was dumb. Well, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, Mike McMahon clearly knows his Star Trek, but he knows his Star Trek, again, from the outside. The funny way. Like, he watches Star Trek knowing, oh, I'm going to watch some Star Trek and have some fun with it. He doesn't, I watch fucking the original series. Let me tell you. That I take that shit very seriously, even when you get to things like Spock's Brain or Way to Eden. I'll buy that. There are episodes of Star Trek I cannot. And The Children Shall Lead is one of the most god-awful hours of television I've ever seen. There is no excuse. I look at it and I'm like, I can't. I mean, the rest of Star Trek I'll buy into. But it's not beyond reproach. I don't think it's beyond reproach, but hey, Julius Goodwin, how are you, sir? I hope you've been well. Haven't seen you in a while. Julius sends in a tip and says, I'll ask how you can both love and hate something at the same time, but honestly, I've been married before. I completely understand how it can happen. Well, I think, yes, sir, I have too. Although I have to say, I like my wife for the most part until a certain period of time. And there was literally something that happened and you're like, anyway, I mean, I love Star Trek, but look, I've been critical of Star Trek for a long time. When First Contact came out, I've told you this before, I wrote an article for Sci-Fi Universe magazine with my friend Dave Hargrove called Worst Contact, Why Star Trek First Contact is the Worst Star Trek Film. I felt after all the interesting stuff, all the Borg stuff was really interesting up until Descent Part 1 and 2, the end of the 6th season, the beginning of the 7th season. And then I feel that their efforts to humanize the Borg sort of made them, when I was watching First Contact, I'm like, okay, the Borg assimilate the Enterprise there. I like the scene on the exterior dish. That was kind of cool. But the rest of it was so weird. It does, as a plot, it's so bizarre. They go back in time to destroy the Phoenix. It's such a convoluted plot. I mean, whenever you watch something like that, and the idea is, okay, so you You want to prevent first contact so the Federation doesn't exist. Well, if you're going back in time, why not just go back in time to the 1800s or the 1700s and assimilate an Earth? But the answer to that could be, well, there's nothing worth assimilating then. Like the Borg don't just go and assimilate people. They need your biological distinctiveness and your technological distinctiveness, and they'll add it to their own. But if there's not a whole lot there that they don't already have, I mean, they have Borg drones, so they have humanoids covered up, or sewn up. So why would they need to do anything else? So, yeah, Swack Props is here and says, "Did you hear the news? The upcoming Lord of the Rings TV series could feature sex and nudity. Middle Earth is not Westeros." I can't believe the Tolkien estate would agree to something like that. Well, here's the thing. Before, I know everybody's been getting their knickers in a bunch. Look, hobbits had to come from somewhere. I would imagine you go to the Shire, there's a lot of happening there, because they're a happy people between the halflings' weed and the ales that they make, the pints they drink. It comes in pints. I think that there's, but do you need to show that? The real question is, it's like swearing in Star Trek. Every time they say fuck in a Star Trek episode, it completely takes you out of it. You're like, wait, in Star Trek, although it's for adults, you don't, and you can insinuate sexuality, but do you really need a sex scene? I mean, there is a lot of shenanigans in the Second Age of Middle Earth. I got to tell you, there is, but do you need to see it? And what about the kids that love Lord of the Rings? They're going to tune in, and all of a sudden they're going to watch what? Legolas getting it on? I mean, not Legolas, but somebody like Legolas. So anyway, I don't know why they would agree to it. I think the Tolkien estate's going to have to approve the scripts too. They're going to have to look and be like, well, why are we showing sex? Is that really necessary? It's the same reason why do you really need to show people going to the bathroom to understand that they go to the bathroom? No, it's a function of life, but you don't need to interrupt your drama to dude, I got to leak. I got to go take a leak, or I got to drop a deuce, man. Hang on. Hold me down, right? Let's hold this right here. I'll be right back. I mean, it's not like they put that stuff. And look, don't get me wrong. I love erotic thrillers. I love great erotic thrillers. I love watching sex in films and all. I love it. It's great. Total voyeur. But it does stop the plot cold unless the story you're telling, like Basic Instinct, the way Catherine Trammell ties up Nick Curran in the movie and starts boning him is exactly what you see happening at the beginning of the movie, and you're wondering, oh my God, is this woman going to jam an ice pick into Michael Douglas's face? And so that's important. Then the sexuality becomes important. Tina Turner seducing William Hurt in Body Heat. Sherilyn Fenn and Richard Tyson. That probably didn't need to happen, but man, I love watching it. So, yeah. AJ, is it Bokar? Bokar? What a cool name. I love the name AJ. Sent in a super chat and says, thanks for the interesting chat. Cheers. Well, thank you for the super chat, sir. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Very much appreciate that. John Suntress is here. John Suntress of the Word Balloon Podcast. John, it's good to see you. He's been killing it. If you haven't watched or listened to his Word Balloon podcast, he's been having so many interesting comic creators and pop culture impresarios on lately. John says, I'll rewind for your Lower Decks POV. On comic books, are you a Terry Moore reader? I'm really not. I have a couple ideas for con panels for you for Baltimore Comic-Con. I'm with the Mainframe Comic-Con guys. All of us want you back to moderate October 24th and 25th. Yeah, no, they sent me stuff. They sent me the list. I just took a brief cursory glance at it, but I haven't decided on anything. There's a few things. Mark Miller or Millar. That seemed to be. I mean, I would love to do that. So, yeah. Michael Preston sent in a super chat and said, "Hey Rob, it's time. It's time. $3,700 for the LG OLED 77-inch TV, $1,300 off the price. And yes, I pre-ordered Lord of the Rings. You know what, Michael? I would love. Right now, it's a little out of my price range to bust on that. I want that 77-inch OLED TV. I want it really, really bad. Now, I would like it better if it was Panasonic. But yeah, I got my eye on that. I got my eye on that TV. I really, really want that OLED 77-inch badly. Francisco. Oh, there we see Francisco became a member and upgraded, and Fortunato Montresor became a member. Thanks for becoming members, guys. I appreciate that. For those of you who have asked, because it would be silly, we're getting up there. We're getting up members. I don't know what the member level is, I think, but when we get to that point where we're going to start having, when I get to 50 people, I don't expect all 50 people to come, but when we have 50 people at that the membership levels, I'm going to start doing an after chat. That's going to be completely suggested. What I'm going to do is, for after chats, I want to do it like the week before. I'm going to pick topics that you guys are going to suggest, and we'll go in and we'll riff on them, and I will announce them beforehand. And however that's going to work, but then I can do some research and bring something to the party, and we'll just have a cool chat. Jonathan Aldridge sends in a super chat and says, I did not like what Discovery did to Spock. I happen to be dyslexic, and what Spock turned into was not what a dyslexic person wants to see. Jonathan, that is an incredibly good point. You know, I never thought of that. An incredibly good point. Wow. You know, it's amazing to me when people that aren't suffering from an affliction, they write characters where that person has an affliction. I would expect more people like you, Jonathan, would say those things. Yeah, I'm with you 100%, man. I don't like the fact that they had to 666. Welcome to Imagination Connoisseur 666. Hello, Imagination Connoisseur 666. You know, as I was saying yesterday and today, my favorite, when I watch horror movies, my favorite villains, I mean, I love Satan. Andrew Sabina became a member. Hello, Andrew. Which is awesome. But yeah, Jonathan, I'm with you 100%. And I think it's shameful. I think it was shameful to do that. Look, to take a character that's been around for 50 years, it's kind of like retconning Doctor Who, the last episode, the Chibnall episode, where you go back in time and, like, why do you have to do that? You know, who are you to go back and change? See, this is what Rick Berman, this is that, you know what this is? Retconning Spock is totally shirt tail. That is a shirt tail move. It is not a shirt sleeves move. It is a shirt tail move. Because, you know, you have to go, gosh, I'm not going to allow a character like Spock who's been around for 50 years and show him respect. Let's shirt tail him because I want to make him, let's saddle him with a modern dilemma. No. What, they wouldn't fix a learning disability in the future? Like Spock already, his disability, according to his people, is that he's a half-breed and that he's had to work really hard to overcome that. But no, let's saddle him. That's not enough. Let's give him something modern that people can understand. Let's give him ADD or dyslexia or something. Yeah, well, you're right, Jonathan. That does a great disservice to people who are actually dyslexic. I agree. Absolutely, 100%. Fernando Barrero sends in a super chat and says, hi, Rob. Yes, I've been traumatized with the ABBA song all my life. Laugh out loud. By the way, why didn't you like Skyfall, and how disappointed were you with the 2001 sequel? Oh, okay, hang on. Let's cold up. I like 2010. Does it reach the level of 2001? No, it does not. It doesn't even reach the level of Arthur C. Clarke's novel 2010, which I really liked. And it's too bad. Like I've said, someone said to me, Rob, you can remake any movie you want. Any movie you want. What would you remake? I would remake 2010. I would go, Keir Dullea is still alive. You can still do it. I would go back and I would readapt the book. I understand what Peter Hyams was doing. 2010, I love the visual effects. I love the feel of it. I love Roy Scheider in it. I love John Lithgow in it. You know, I love Bob Balaban in it. I love Helen Mirren in it. I love 2010. Unfortunately, the idea is, you know, even at the end, all these worlds are yours except Europa. You don't, the added line, use them together, use them in peace. Fuck that. No, they didn't say that. All these worlds are yours except Europa. Attempt no landings there. That's all they said until 2061. But that was a mistake. But anyway, I like 2010 as a space adventure. As a sequel to 2001, it certainly doesn't reach the 2001 heights. I like to think of it as a 2001 side story. But I do like it a lot. I do like it a lot, actually. Now, I'll tell you why I didn't like Skyfall. I didn't like Skyfall because it was a movie where James Bond continually fails to achieve his objectives. He's a failure. And look, it's beautifully shot. I love Javier Bardem in it, but there's a lot of distasteful things. Berenice, how do you pronounce her last name? The woman that is under the sway of Silva, one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my life, one of the sexiest women in that role. Oh my God, worthy of classic Star Trek. I mean, and what happens to her, I found really distasteful. You know, it was really, there was just something, and I didn't like the fact Silva's plan that it turns Joker-esque when they get to London. None of it made any sense, and of course M dies in the end. So Bond continually fails, and I this idea, you know what, the Daniel Craig movies were missing a standard, not a standard, but a James Bond adventure, where Bond he's briefed, he goes out and he has an adventure, a singular, standalone Bond adventure, and I think that the fact that this retcon Blofeld is like, I'm the architect of all your pain, James. I mean, like, what? You are? I mean, Spectre, they don't even do anything. I wanted Blofeld to, like, steal some nuclear bombs and fly a plane into the ocean and pick him up with divers or do some shit that was cool. It was so lame. James Bond takes out the entire Spectre base with one bullet at the end of... Oh, pardon me, I'm going off about Spectre. But Skyfall, while I love the way it was made, I just don't like a movie where James Bond fails all the time. Alexander Wilson. Hello, Alexander. Alexander says, I was anonymous that got you to open up that Prince set. Too sweet. The time is got you to open up that Prince Too Sweet Sign of the Times deluxe set. I didn't want you to open it, but now that you did, I want it even more. Keep up the good work. I'm a Prince fanatic. You know, so I have this John Lennon action figure that was made by a company that I shouldn't support because they didn't pay their artists, but they only made Molecule 8. They only made that one figure, but it's great. And now they're making a Jimi Hendrix figure. And I've realized that in addition to I have a fetish for those of you who are new to the channel. I love action figures that come with chairs. Like, I'm kind of thinking, like, I want to move these wait, hang on. I don't know what you guys would think. You'll have to tell me. I haven't decided yet because I'm moving things around in the Robservatory. I'm kind of thinking that these two shelves here, wait a minute, where was I? I'm looking. This shelf here and this shelf here, just these two shelves, should be full of action figures, like Hot Toys figures and stuff. Or I've got all these random figures that aren't Hot Toys figures, and they're putting out a Jimi Hendrix figure. But in addition to, I love action figures that come with chairs. I also have a fetish for action figures that come with guitars. There aren't that many of them. Eric Draven, the Crow, he comes with a guitar. That John Lennon figure, that was an extra perk, the special edition. That was a guitar. I had to get that. But this Jimi Hendrix figure, oh my God, I have to have it because I have to put Jimi Hendrix and John Lennon playing guitars together, and maybe I'll just put Eric Draven with them. That'd kind of be, they're in heaven rocking out. But yes, I have a I don't know, but yes, Alexander. I mean, we were the Prince thing. That Prince set is so dope. It is so dope. I love it so much. But it's okay. Wasn't that fun opening that up? If you didn't say, I might not have opened it up because it was too cool for school. And I did I watched the, oh my God, the Paisley, the New Year's Eve concert. But the New Year's Eve concert, I think it's still on YouTube. Maybe they took it off YouTube. Oh, it's great. Miles Davis. Miles Davis wasn't great because I'm a huge Miles Davis fan. And, I mean, Kind of Blue is still one of my favorite records. But I've got a couple of Miles Davis box sets. Miles Davis and Prince. My God. Luckily, I got to see Miles Davis. I saw Miles Davis when he was doing the album, when he did the version of Scritti Politi's Perfect Way. Was it Tutu? Was that the name of the album? Tutu? I think it was Tutu. I got to see Miles Davis. I saw him once, but it was so amazing. 200 Watt Studio says, Orville got it right. Your exocomp example reminds me of the episode where the smarmy blob engineer Yaphet steps up and saves the kids and the ship. Yeah, I mean, I thought that exocomp thing was I'm like, oh my God, what a missed opportunity. But, it's, yeah, I don't know. Ross Gecko says, how many hours a day do you estimate that you consume entertainment content per day? You've watched a lot. I have to tell you, though, to be honest, I'm constantly consuming things. Like, there's a stack of books in the bathroom. Whenever I sit down, I'm reading something, and then I'm either playing stuff here. Like my goal this weekend, the Robservatory is still a mess. I must get it in order. I must put my Robservatory in order. And I always have something playing. So I'm always listening to something or experiencing something. It's just because I like to get to it. There's so much. But I'm constantly consuming. If I'm not making something, I'm consuming something. So it's a lot. It's a lot of the day. 666 became a member. Andrew Sabina became a member. Alexander Wilson says, you have memberships. Well, here's the thing. Like I've explained, some people don't like it. And I feel really bad. Like one of my favorite people on the channel, and especially, is Trinidad the Island Man, your Island Man. And, he wasn't happy that we had memberships. And this was something that it just gets unlocked when you get to a certain point on YouTube. And to me, anything I can do to bolster the channel and use, because frankly, to what I really want to do is I would like to start paying people. Like John Campea, when there's a lot of YouTubers that you might not know this, but the money that they generate, they give people jobs. Like John Campea employs people. Jonathan Voico, fact checker Jonathan, John Campea pays him. And I have to say, as a boss, John Campea is amazing. And when you become a YouTuber that has like 250,000 subscribers, you make enough money a month via what we do here, but also through passive advertising and things that you can pay people. And that's what I would like to do, is turn this channel into a place where people could get paid. And so memberships, and then the really getting more passive income through as you get more views and all that works. But, I do kind of think of this as becoming sort of a business, because what I want to do is make movies and make content, make shows. And I have plans. If I had the budget, like for instance, if I was able to get the money to restore Free Enterprise to 4K, I would carve part of the budget out, not a very big part, but I would actually make a show. I'd do a series, like a documentary series, like what does it entail to go back and restore a film? Because people ask me about that a lot, and I don't know how interested people would be, but I would I would have to hire a camera guy. I couldn't just walk around, with my iPhone. I mean, I could, but what I want to do is I want to create new programming. I mean, I would like the Burnettwork to actually be a Burnettwork, and my dream be a network where there's other shows. And my dream would be able to make enough money through all the various ways you can generate income via websites or YouTube and all that. All of this is with your help too. Wouldn't it be interesting if we could make enough money through this channel, and I mean we, the community, where I have a dream. I can't really explain the whole thing because it's really hard to explain. But it would definitely be this community, the Post-Geek Singularity, would actually participate in every facet of the making of either a film or a TV series. And when I say participate, I mean, I would make, it's hard to explain, but I want to make the audience the studio. So for instance, I'll give you an example. Let's say I got a script and I wanted to make a $2 million sci-fi or horror film. Like we talked about, we talked to the brothers yesterday, and they made their film for, money, not a whole lot of money, comparatively speaking. But if you could raise that much money, what if I could sell, like part of, say, being a member of the channel? What if I made you the studio? So let's say I had 5 scripts, right? My dream would be to be able to make, say, a $2 million movie, and I would be using money that would be generated in a number of different sources. But like if you were a member of the channel or something, and you would have a monthly, like let's say a monthly fee of a subscription fee of, say, like $25 a month, maybe even a little more. But you guys would be the studio. So this would be in addition to the membership now, but and you guys would be the studio. So I would have 5 scripts. I'm like, I want to make these 5 scripts, but I would send them to you guys, you being the members, you being the studio, and you'd have to vote on them. And then whichever script was the one we would make that we would agree with, then say, for instance, I'm starting to cast the script, right? I would make it so you guys would be there. You could log in, and I would be sitting in a casting session, assuming we weren't COVIDed out, and you guys could sit down. You guys could sit down and actually watch all of the casting sessions, and you would literally be taken through every step of the way where you would be there. You could watch live on set while we were shooting a movie. You'd be into the edit bay. You know, this is something that I've wanted to do. Now I've thrown this out. By the way, someone else will take this idea and start it up tomorrow. But that's kind of what I've wanted to do. And a lot of people, like Lucas Kendall, when we were making Skyfighter, I told him about this idea. He's like, no one's going to do that. Actors are not going to be allowing you to have cameras on set. And I'm like, yeah, but not the whole time. But what about some of the time? What if you said, okay, between 10 o'clock in the morning and 1 in the afternoon when we break for lunch, we're actually going to allow the people that help pay for this movie and our studio, which is you guys, we're going to make this movie and you're going to be able to watch. I mean, making movies is boring, but what if you could switch between, say, 10 different cameras that are all over the set that are broadcasting for 3 hours, all different departments, the camera department, the director, and everybody's got a camera on so you could actually listen and see and hear what goes on a set. Now, most people get bored after the first week, but you guys could watch the movie instead of after the fact. You're actually there, and you guys could make decisions that affect the creative outcome of the film. I think that'd be badass. It might not work. It might be a spectacularly horrible experience that didn't work at all, but it would be fun to try it once just to see what happens. You know, and it could be a really cool experience, and that would be the thing. Instead of going to class and hearing a lecture, you watch it happen from the beginning to the end. I think that'd be dope. I'd love to do that. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see where it all goes. Calvin Bose says, people miss that when Bond said this never happened to the other fellow, that he could be referring to Cinderella because he's holding the shoes Tracy left behind. You know what, Calvin? I agree with that. Everyone thinks it's breaking the fourth wall. I think it's absolutely, I've always taken it as it was, he's referring to Cinderella, Prince Charming, the Cinderella slippers. I totally agree with you 100%. John Suntress says, 2010 is the Godfather 3 of 2001 films. Let's talk about Baltimore more if you have time this weekend. I'm programming the panels. Oh, well, I will take a look because they sent me a link. I just took a quick glance. But yeah, I definitely would love to. Ross Gecko sent in a super chat and said, I'm sure many people discovered you from your Duel of the Fates review. I think you're right. I think a scoop or event videos like that will help you grow faster. You know what, Ross? I'm Rob. You know what, Ross? Here's the thing. I don't actively seek out those kinds of scoops. It's not really what I do, but that was something that I was given specifically to do what I did. And it was cool. I would love to do more of that, but I have to tell you, the last time when I did when I reviewed Nicholas Meyer's 3 SETI Alpha 5 scripts, as soon as that show broadcast, CBS blocked it worldwide. When I reviewed the Dune script, which I loved, the script for Denis Villeneuve's upcoming Dune, I loved it. Warner Brothers blocked that show. So it's a very thin line. You're skirting a very thin line with those things. I mean, the Duel of the Fates script never got made, so you can't really. I mean, maybe Disney copywrote it, but it didn't get made. So it was. I'm sure that's why they allowed it to stand. But you're right. I'm not looking necessarily for scoopage. I could make my channel grow further, but I'd rather do things like, I don't know how it's going to work, but the Imagination Connoisseur Film Festival. I know it's not as sexy, but I think it is, and I think that getting people to participate, like, the movie I got today was from Australia. So we now have 2 movies from the United States that are up, and we have a movie from Ireland and a movie from Germany and a movie from Arizona, B.L. Alley's movie. Well, no, we got B.L. Alley's movies from Arizona. We've got Wiener Killer that I think's from L.A. I guess you'd say it was from L.A. Then we have the origin of Spider-Man, which is the Spider-Man movie. That's from, although it's not called that. That's from Australia. The Secret Exchange, Dieter Bastian's film, is from Germany, and Crawl Space is from Ireland. So, and then the movie I'm putting up tomorrow is just a really quick snippet. It's a taste, but that, I don't know where that's from. But I was hoping, to build, I want to build the channel doing things that I feel have value. I mean, look, reporting on the Duel of the Fates script was great. I love talking about the SETI Alpha 5 scripts. I love reading those, and I love talking about Dune. And those scoops are great, and it's great to get a lot of subscribers quickly. But you know what I would rather have? I'd rather have the audience that we have now who participates. I call to arms. I call to action. I'm like, hey, make posters. 60 people made posters that are being voted on. And I would like to use this channel to foster other people's creativity. That's my whole, I think that's the greatest thing. I mean, I'll still wax rhapsodic and yammer away like I do, but if we could get a community of people that are making things, that to me. And look, I hope that when someone sends me a movie, I hope that's the last time they send me a movie. And people are like, well, why would you say that? Because I hope that they had such a great experience that they're going to go out and start making movies for themselves and really start, that doesn't mean I don't want to keep getting movies from people. Like I got The Secret Exchange 2, Broken Promises. But what I think that metaphorically, I want people to, to grow and expand and create a community of people that you can dip in here and hopefully recharge your creative batteries in the live chat, or if I'm talking about a subject you like, and then go off and make your own stuff. Because I want everybody here to make things that I want to buy, that I want to put somewhere in the Robservatory. I want to see something and go, man, that's cool shit. How can I get a copy? Let me get a copy of that. Like Cal, like Swag Props. As I said, I could get a glass case and just put Cal's stuff in there. I could do that. 666 sent in a super chat. Well, thank you, 666. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle being, kind souls from across the 28 known galaxies. I'm going to bring this chat to an end. This was a rollicking good chat. I hope everybody had a good time. I want to thank my moderating staff. I want to thank, of course, Mike Bodden. I want to thank Greg Smith. I want to thank the Richard. And obviously, the Richard always throws interesting watch parties, and he's always doing something over on the Post-Geek Singularity page. Robert Pariso is here. Mr. Derringer is here. Joshua Levesque is here. This is a potpourri of moderators. Which is great. I want to thank them for all their great work. They make the community what it is. So thank them. Actually, you know what? Wait. I guess I'm not. Poindexter Lounge sent in a super chat and said, I'm not done. Why do I think I'm done? Wait a minute. There's lots of people that I've apparently have missed. Well, Alexander Wilson asked about memberships. I went off. Alexander, the memberships are on the front of the YouTube page. There's a join button if you're watching on a browser, and if you go on your phone and go through the browser, you'll see a join button. So you'll see that. And thank you. I mean, Andrew Sabina became a member. 666 became a member. Ross Gecko became a member. Calvin. John Suntress says 2010 is the Godfather 3 of 2001 films, which I think I already said, and which I will. It's Poindexter Lounge I missed. Hey, Rob, excited to finally see Tenet tonight in the theater. I rented the theater for Empire as well. I agree on Trek, but I like Lower Decks. Talk soon. You can do that. You can do that. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to bring this chat to an end. We're going to have, there's our first animated. It's just a taste. As I said, it's going to debut tomorrow at noon. There's a guy making an animated film. I was like, oh my God, someone's going to make an animated film. I don't know if he's going to finish it, but maybe just this trailer is just what he wants to put up, and I'm putting it up. He paid the entry fee, sent it. It's pretty cool. It's animated. That's going to go up tomorrow. I'm completely shocked at the response to this film festival. It's tickled me to no end. And you know what? All of you should make a film. You should watch John Campia's video from yesterday. It's like he set it up for me to spike. But talking about making films, it was one of his talks on walks, and he did a video about why people should make films. But anyway, yeah, I think that's it. Robservations episode number 532. 532. That's crazy. Anyway, it's true. 532. I can't believe we're a month away from the. It's crazy, nutty. Anyway, amazing. So everybody, thank you for supporting the channel. Thanks for becoming members. It's crazy. It should be a lot of fun. We'll see what we're going to do with it. I honestly don't know where it's going to go, but hopefully it's going to lead to bigger and better things for the channel, and we'll do more stuff, and there'll be more shows. I mean, I would love to program this channel, like I said, 12 hours a day. It'd be cool. Maybe have the John Suntress Power Hour or something like that. The word balloon, an addendum word balloon show we could do with John, which would be kind of cool. But I'd have to pay him. That's the thing. Got to pay him. But anyway, thank you all for that. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for sending me letters. I have more that I haven't read. I will get to those tomorrow. But as of now, allow me to say, every person you meet has a story to tell that you, or hopefully a film to show, that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And for those of you who are so inclined, even if you take your smartphone out, remember, the first annual Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival is accepting entries until December 1st. There are cash prizes. There are trophies. There's bragging rights. I mean, there's never been a film festival that is open to entries from extraterrestrials before. We have made this a distinct possibility. We've opened it up. There might be a language barrier or even a money barrier. I mean, I don't think they can PayPal me quatloos. And if they could, then we know they've infiltrated our society. So I might have done done a great service to the country. Anyway, yeah, so there you go. Robservations ends right now. And I will see you in the morning, on the morrow, as it were.